Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Deepest Law. Simon Roberts, welcome.
Welcome all, and thank you very much for having us again. It's hot, hot, hot.
On the weekend, I went to various places in Wales, such as Kenfig Pool, which I didn't know. Despite having lived in that region, or known that region for 43 years, I didn't know that Kenfig Pool is on the site of a medieval village that was enveloped by encroaching sandstorms.
Ooh.
So the sand dunes are actually on top of the village. I didn't know that.
That's like the creepy village of Dunwich, the one that got swept out to sea in Suffolk that I talked about. Yeah.
And then another place I went, visiting the old Roman era hill fort. In fact, before the Roman era, even Iron Age hill fort in Margam. I went up to see Margam Abbey. And the reason I mention this is because driving to these various places, I also saw my old school friends as well, but driving to these various places, who did I have on in the car? But Messrs. Hatt and Roberts talking about Jonathan Meades.
Yeah.
I kind of listened to it on and off in various different journeys, because I seldom get the chance to drive in the car without AAA nagging for some song or other. And it was very enjoyable, actually, very enjoyable listen. You two made reference to, you said at some point, the chalk to your cheese, right? And I thought, it's actually quite enjoyable, this show. There's no annoying kind of Philistine Welshman, interrupting the flow of things to talk about 90s comedians and things like that. But it did get me thinking, okay, if you have like a chalk and cheese dynamic, or, if you're if the four of us were the classical elements or the four humours, right, as they would have done it, which one would we... Which ones would we be? Because this is something that TV writers often did, where in a hidden way. So if you think of any group of four, each one of them actually embodies one of the classical elements or the classical humours. So for example, the Ghostbusters, right? Each one of them is a different one, or the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I was thinking, Simon, if you don't mind saying, I think you'd be water. I think you are receptive. I think you are.
Yeah.
You go with the flow. You're not a spiky character. You're kind of flow.
I'm sanguine humour, I think.
Yeah, he's sanguine, definitely.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking the other three is more difficult. I would say Horus is probably the Earth. Probably Earth.
So this is Earth, air, water, and fire, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Doing the bodily humours?
Well, they're the same. They're basically the same. They're basically the same thing. Is it because each one of the four humours relate to one of the four elements? So your choleric is fire. Your trying to remember which way around it is now. I think the sanguine man is water. What are the other two?
See, I think Horus would be choleric myself, actually.
Do you think he's the fire? You think he's the fire?
I think he's choleric, yeah. He's not melancholic, and he's not phlegmatic, I think.
Well, okay, all right. I was going to go for phlegmatic, but yeah.
All right. You could be a combination, maybe.
I don't mind. Well, we could all just be one or any combination. You don't
person
have to
who is
cover the four
calm
elements.
and not easily upset.
What, me?
Interesting.
Is that what phlegmatic?
That's what phlegmatic would be. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the water one, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that would be you, Simon. Of the four of us, right? If we had to fit them in, I think you're more likely to go with the flow. The reason why I say Horus is that he's earthier. He is actually just an earthier character than the.
Astrologically, that's wrong though. I am in astrology. I'm water. I'm a water sign.
Interesting.
Strongly, doubly, sun and ascendant. So.
What's Sagittarius then? I'm wondering.
Fire.
Fire sign. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then hat I find more difficult because the air one is kind of intellectual, but also can be quite airy. Can become get lost. Kind of, in its worst aspect, air can get lost. It can be kind of
right.
But I also think quite cutting as well. But I think me and Hat would be vying for the air because I've always thought that.
And is that what choleric or?
No, that's I always forget which way around they. That's why I do the. I find the elements easier to remember than the humours.
Sanguine, choleric, melancholic, and phlegmatic.
Yes. So
in astrology though, the air signs are the most naturally sociable or communicative. But that's astrology.
That's also true. Yeah. Well, you can have good communication, but if you've got too much air, you're too cutting, too kind of it really depends on where on that kind of spectrum.
I've made efforts to overcompensate and keep my inner chud down. The reactions are there, but I suppress them ruthlessly.
There's a real question to be asked about the four temperaments, which is of course John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Who is who?
And that reminds me, by the way, that this long lost band, the Elite Theorists. Here they are, the Elite Theorists, right? Almost nobody got that. This is a famous picture of the Beatles from 1963. That I basically got to, I basically got Grok to Photoshop in our faces, basically.
Terrible.
And your clothes as well, though. That's not the clothes they were wearing.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it didn't quite get me and Blam Blast right. I kept on doing it, and in the end, it just was like gave up trying to keep their clothes, so it kind of changed our bodies as well. I don't know why. Kind of gave us the clothes that we were wearing in the photos that I used. So.
You're too embedded in the algo now. You're too identifiable as you with the jacket and the black. The black.
It's a bit of a trademark, isn't it?
Yeah,
the white jacket.
You won't be able to escape your own image.
It's my Miami Vice. I call it
hyper real AA.
Could I make if we're moving on? Could I make a comment about Wales because you mentioned Wales?
Oh yeah, go on. Yeah.
I also went to the land of my fathers last weekend, and I went to Carew Castle. Have you ever been there? It's a good castle.
I don't think I have actually.
No, it's not particularly famous, but I think it's the Tudor one. I walked around just the outside. You had to pay quite a lot to go in, and we didn't have much time. But I don't think I've been to Margam. But I did want to ask you, when we were kids, sort of people our age and probably Simon's age and stuff like that. So you go to anywhere, some it could just be a folly or something, or a castle or a museum or a tower or something. Yeah. You'd go in the gift shop afterwards and they'd have various things. Sometimes a couple of videos, right? Maybe a video about that place, or maybe just other videos of other castles and stuff. And one of them was Gerald of Wales. Did you ever see the film Gerald of Wales?
Well, I've read Gerald of Wales.
Geraldus Cambrensis.
He's
actually,
well, he was a writer.
Right. You've read him. Sorry. I see.
Yeah, I've read Gerald. Yeah, and also Geoffrey of Monmouth as well. It's another.
Well, they made an animated story of his life. It's kind of humorous. It's probably on YouTube. I'm sure it's on YouTube. But yeah, when you mentioned Wales and castles, I just thought of Gerald because he was Crusader times, was he?
He's actually a very important figure, Gerald of Wales, in terms of keeping alive various indigenous traditions and also the rather peculiar strand of Christianity that exists in Britain, which is actually slightly different from Christianity of everywhere else. So Yeah, and I mean, him and Geoffrey of Monmouth are very important for this reason.
He also did a lot of work in Ireland. Geoffrey, Gerald of Wales. He accompanied King John, and he made a huge work on the people in the land of Ireland, previously sort of unknown in
There
England.
are things that historians only know because Gerald of Wales wrote them down, essentially. So
and he was what, 1100s, was it, or something like that?
something. I mean, King John, what's that? 1215, isn't it?
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gerald was also a big Norman chauvinist, and he was half Norman himself, and he always makes kind of cutting remarks about the non-Norman parts of the Isles. He feels that the Normans were, civilizing influence on these savages.
And he was a monk, like he was a tonsured monk, is that right? Or was he?
I think so.
In the cartoon, I think he is anyway. And they show him recruiting. Yeah, they show him recruiting for the Crusades as well. He was a pumper with a big joint.
Do you know Wales has the highest number of castles anywhere in the world?
It really is a fabulous place, honestly. If people haven't been there, you don't know the beauty and the history is just lovely.
Do you know why though?
Because to stamp them down.
Well, still trying to ring.
Every time they'd stick a castle up, the Welsh would destroy it, or they'd burn it down, or they find. So it was basically like a real problem. They had quite a job actually keeping Wales under control. So in the end, they ended up doing the real life equivalent of castle spam. If you ever play like a strategy game, just build a shitload of castles. If we build so many, you're not going to be able to destroy all of them. So that's why there are so. I mean, I think you can't go more than so many miles without coming across a castle or a ruin of a castle in Wales for that reason. So yeah, there it is.
Margam Abbey is a proper ruin, right? That's like a fallen down abbey, isn't it?
Yeah. In fact, I went there as well. Lovely. And the abbey church is still there, and various other things are still there in Margam, and including the rather large Margam Castle. I don't know who lived there or what that is for. Clearly, that was built later on. That's not a Norman era castle, that one. But yes.
Do you know what was the? Do you know? There's Caldy Island as well, isn't there? That's like a working, living monastery now. I think there are Dominicans.
Still a monastery there.
Did you say you had Welsh ethnicity, Horace?
Yeah, my dad's from Pembroke.
So you've all got. Well, I'm the only non-Welsh.
I think surrounded, Simon.
Gutted.
Everyone in the chat is literally Welsh. Probably.
The Welsh mafia strikes once more.
Exactly.
I knew I was.
And this isn't a case.
Something.
It's not just a case of it's like currently in vogue to claim that you're part Welsh or something. This is actually just luck, really. But unlucky for you.
Yeah. I've only got Irish.
You got Irish. Have you got Viking as well, given where you're from?
No, I didn't get the height. So I only got 5'8", which is average height for 1970s male.
But do you know what was the castle where Margaret Beaufort was like the lord or the lady, and Henry Tudor was conceived? I think
Pembroke, wasn't it?
Pembroke, yeah, I think that's right.
That sounds right. That sounds right.
Pembroke, yeah,
that's right. And it was, yeah.
Roberts isn't my real family name to Bob Francis in the chat. It was just a name my dad. I don't know why. My grandmother was Woolnow, which is an Anglo-Saxon name, and my other grandmother was Warren, which is a Norman name. But I don't know why he called us Roberts. He just rebranded the family completely.
What? He was like, I don't fancy these names. I'm going to go for Roberts.
Yeah. He was Paul
unusual.
Robert Woolnow, and he called us the Roberts family after. I don't know why. I think it's bizarre to completely rename your family, but maybe he was on the run from something, but I don't know what.
Or was he facing? Had he encountered a lot of anti-Semitic prejudice or something?
I don't know, but it might have been something to do. He used to go to trips to East Germany in the 70s a bit, so I don't know. Something to do with that.
Whoa, the plot thickens.
We used to stay on some sort of military base, but I don't know what it was about.
Whoa, oh.
So anyway, I'll be in good company when I go to the Adam Curtis conference, and I can say hello to the other spooks, Paul Mason and Tobias Elwood, who are speaking
Unfortunately,
there.
I can't make that, Simon, as I
Probably wise.
message you. The missus is away that day, so I have to. I'm on.
Yeah.
And I didn't know there was a clash between those two dates. So here's
right.
what it is. By the way, look at how low the viewer numbers are, Simon. Look.
What?
We were hitting over 1,000 when we were doing the slop things. Now it's just called the fall of the USSR. They're not interested. Look.
Yeah, but we've got real people instead of slot bots in.
You see, look, I complained about becoming a metonym for the suffering of the Soviet Union and a slop icon, and look what happens. If only I'd listened to AA and his mastery of the algo, we would be bathing in thousands right now.
Do people, do that many people, like 500-600 people, think that they're only getting the content they want when you use a slop thumbnail or title?
Yes.
Yeah, literally, yes.
That doesn't make sense.
People don't make sense.
It's a bizarre,
I know that every Wednesday is the deepest law.
It's something that I'll never understand. People just cannot get it through their heads. Wednesday, deepest law. Tuesday, office hours. People just engage. They just engage with YouTube. They don't engage with it like TV. I've always thought, well, schedule. 9 a.m. every morning, a video. But people just can't get their head around schedule in this day and age. So
algo alchemy.
Weird.
Given the tearaway success of the Panama Hat channel since we've been doing stuff, I was actually thinking, AA, of proposing a merger between AA Infotainment Global and Panama Roberts Networks International Incorporated in Cricklewood, Monaco, and Cayman Islands.
Good idea,
but only on condition we're going to have to ditch some heel energy. This is my Farageist proposal.
Fuck you.
And you could be redeployed to like we could have a special niche libertarian nationalist.
Are you suggesting
program.
that Horus needs to be got rid of in order to?
We could give him a show called Rothbard Bowdenhour or something like that, and he could.
That sounds cool. I'm up for that.
Well, actually, that's not
finally
bad,
my own spotlight.
Yeah. I once did come across a 24-hour libertarian TV channel when I was in Paraguay. Where it's literally just a guy in a suit holding I think it's funded by that Milei guy in Argentina. They're paying for it, but it's like
it is literally they show for 24 hours.
So it's a man in a suit holding a copy of Human Action, saying this is really good. You need to read this. We need to discuss. Like it's just that 24-hour rolling libertarian channel in Paraguay.
I mean that or Fort Boyard. What do you choose? I don't know. That. Sorry, maybe Fort Boyard was too obscure a reference.
Do you remember the days of the? Do you guys remember the days of the cartel?
Yeah.
Here on YouTube, where we basically entered into a kind of
top-down coordination,
semi-formal cartel, where none of us would overlap each other on the stream. So, we had it all worked out. There was a whole schedule. Nobody would stream against unpopular opinions. I wouldn't stream against, and we had a whole schedule. And then there would be consequences for breaking the cartel. Do you remember that? It lasted for a while, about 2 years or something like that. So
sorry, I don't know if you're talking about me, but just picked up something in the chat. The pun on Panama's name, David Dredd said Panama Studio Canal. It's quite.
That's
funny.
not bad. That's all right.
Pretty good.
Studio Canal Plus,
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Canal 5.
We wouldn't ditch Horus. No libertarian left behind.
But I do think AA we could definitely do a bit more of a merger. You could come on the channel and kind of bump our subscriber numbers up with your star presence. Do a bit of babyface work on the channel.
I am bound to the hours of the daytime, though. Sadly,
That's all right.
I've got to be out by 5 p.m. every day.
He doesn't have something of the night about him like us.
No, we do.
Right.
We go on
Michael
till 3 in the morning.
The other thing I want to mention really quickly is that earlier on today, Horace, speaking of libertarians, I did a video on Hans Hermann Hoppe, which is coming out next Thursday, I think. So there's going to be a Hoppe video, and it kind of reminded me of how instrumental Hoppe was really on the journey that many people went on in the you remember the libertarian to kind of right-wing pipeline? It
Yeah.
was through Hopper, really.
Yeah, without him, there probably would be no such thing, really. Yeah.
Um,
Others tried to block that pipeline, didn't they, at the time? They may have been proved now, but Jeffrey Cucker tried to stand athwart it, screaming no.
Yeah. So, and I forgot how much how, dare I say, reactionary Hopper is in a way, because he's quite like anti-egalitarian, and he basically rewrites all of history from the point of view that feudalism was more free than what we have now, and that monarchy was more free. It's kind of an interesting way of thinking, really. I also wanted to mention, just before we embark on the Curto here, I do have. People were saying I don't write enough on Substack. I have released 3 articles just this past week. There we are. Look, Slopulism Strikes Back, which has had furious rebuttals and so on. The Impossibility of Organization for the Online Right, which has been somewhat widely praised. People are calling that like one of the best articles ever. I don't know why. It was fairly bog standard, personally. And just this morning, Tucker the Last Cope, which is me basically saying I am not excited about Tucker Carlson's plans for a new party, and I'm not going to get on board with it, basically. The era of I'm not allowing myself any copes anymore, and I just think that will be a waste of time as well. So yeah, you can read those 3 there, and yeah, I feel myself getting more drawn into Substack now. Horace, you were trying to talk to me on Substack, and I'm like, oh no, this is becoming like Twitter again.
It is. I saw that.
I kind of
the Substack feed works just like the Twitter feed, really.
Yeah. So I'm trying to just post articles and not get drawn in too much into back and forths. But I did try to address the Woes article yesterday and various other things as well.
Remember what I said about Mark Fisher? He didn't like comments. He didn't believe in the principle of people being allowed to comment on blogs.
Yeah, it's probably very wise. Probably very wise.
I allow comments on mine. So, since we're talking about Substack, I would just like to highlight to people that I have a Substack, eternalhorus.substack.com. And my articles concern olden times that are already out of fashion, so they're still worth reading about, even years after I've written them. So check them out. Thanks.
Indeed. Seconded.
So, right, let's play an ad, and then when we come back, we'll just talk about Curto for the rest of the stream.
There you go.
Happy, Simon?
I think it's great. I mean, I always think the old streams, it was about an average of, I think, about 28 minutes of banter, and then we would do the stream, and everyone would be nice and calm and enjoying the Curto flowing over them.
What ad should I play today? Let's have a look. Speaking of economics, why don't I play the economics ad for old times? Are you sick of hearing about Marx and Keynes? Do you want to know why neoclassical economics is so flawed? Have you ever wondered how to work out the marginal productivity of a burger bun? Do you want to level up your econ knowledge? Buy it now. £350. Foundations of Economics. Foundations of Economics. I'm here. Foundations of Economics. Get it now. All right.
Where do we stand on Keynesianism today? Are we more sympathetic or less than we were?
I kind of, one of the most based things that Hopper ever said is that it is not remarked about enough that John Maynard Keynes was a homosexual, and homosexuals have high time preference, which means they don't plan for the future because they have less of an incentive to do so because they have no offspring. And in the long run, we're all dead is the economics articulation of high time preference, which is why Keynesianism leads to bad government and bad outcomes, because nobody is saving for the future. And I still think that's pretty good as a kind of...
You know about the Bloomsbury Circle, right? That Keynes was part of, a circle of friends and so on. They wrote, and then we're talking early in the 20th century. I mean, a lot of them were Cambridge apostles as well, and some of them were sort of subversives. But a lot of some of them wrote about what they called the higher sodomy, because they thought that homosexual sex, I think, but also love, was superior to heterosexual. They were like strongly pro homosexual or bisexual.
What? On what basis?
It's just because they're into it, probably.
Is this
Just because they're all
sort of like
bumming
ancient
each
Greek
other.
revivalism or something? Sort of
Probably,
Theban band style kind of
I think
heroic.
Ponzi Pratt's getting carried away with their own obsessions. I think it's just, like these are people who consider themselves superior anyway. Cambridge Apostles, they're like really higher-minded. Sort of, I don't know, like looking down on everyone. Stephen Fry, I think Stephen Fry, he was an apostle. The sort of people who just like have their noses up at everyone. People want to read more about that, the importance of sort of the homosexual underground, because obviously it was an underground until about the 50s or 60s. To some extent, I mean, there were open homos, but read my essay on Substack, The Engine of Compulsory Conformity, where I talked about exactly that, drawing on the work of the historian John Costello. Check it out. It ties in with loads of other things you wouldn't know about.
Who are the Cambridge Apostles? Sorry, you mentioned them. Is that like a movement
like
or
like a secret,
close association?
Largely secret. Or like people, like basically they try and select the finest this and the finest comedian and the finest classicist and the finest whatever, and it's like they have a salon, present a paper, present an idea, often a subversive or challenging idea for the sake of it, to start an argument. Victor Rothschild was one. Loads of famous people who've like high achievers, upper class people, have been Cambridge Apostles, certainly including Keynes, Lytton Strachey, and others of the Bloomsbury group. G. Moore, the philosopher, I think. Mostly men, but maybe some women.
Connected to the idea of the Cambridge spies and their subversion as well.
Yes, it did become that, in the 30s, Several of... Guy Burgess was a Cambridge Apostle.
You mentioned Stephen Fry there, who has said that he's celibate, right? Has been celibate for a long time.
He's got a partner.
Well, I remember talking to a gay guy years ago, friend of my ex-wife's, who is gay, and he was telling me, look, you've got to understand, about 95% of gay guys don't do sex. Like, they'll do everything else, but they don't do like bumming. It's actually only done by a small subset of people. It was like me, for example. I never, I'll do a blowjob or whatever, but I won't do that. And I've never forgot that. I kind of like, strange. But
do they find it too gay or something?
Well, I think they just don't want to. I think they don't want to do it. Basically.
Presumably because it's such a destructive act. If you do that,
I'm not going to criticize them.
Yeah, because it can't be. It's not medically good for you, is it? Doing that, it'll cause problems. So maybe they just don't want to get
But apparently, it's super common for gay guys to either be celibate, right, as Stephen Fry claims to be, or to to quote that first date's bummers out of bounds.
Did they all incur injuries early on in their sodomite career?
Yeah,
and just
a trail of prolapses that they didn't recover from.
Just learned from maybe older people. Just like, it's better not to, basically.
I think it's that gay men prefer torturing each other in relationships, emotionally and psychologically, that probably provides much of the action.
They'll beat each other up, but that's different.
I think it's. I think a lot of homosexuality, at least the more intellectual type, can be explained by Camille Paglia. Do you remember her?
Yeah.
Kind of sort of gadfly feminist academic, where she argues that homosexuality is basically just mutual incomprehension on the part of men and women socially. So that you have homosexual men, it's that it's not so much a misogyny as such. It's just that they can't function around female socialization. And of course, there are obviously gaps in that, because there are a lot of the kind of gay guy who's a sort of women's man, if you like, where he just hangs around women and is really camp and stuff. But your kind of more classic type of homosexual, according to her, is someone who finds something unclean about the feminine. The kind of the interiority, if you like, of the feminine, the kind of hidden, the aspect of the hidden cavern, and the kind of marshiness is the word she uses. But she also says this is why so many gay men are like rake thin, because they have this horror of the sort of outwardly biological. But so many lesbians are like morbidly obese, because she says the minute that the female body stops trying to be pleasing to the male eye, it just goes back to being like the earth. Like it just sort of increases in size. So according to her, that's the reason for homosexuals, but I don't know.
Interesting. I came across this article on, because Substack's weird, right? Substack does not push articles on you that you like necessarily of the people you're subscribed to. Okay, it just kind of a little bit like YouTube does, I guess. It just kind of gives you recommendations of stuff to read. Okay, and one of these articles that came up, which kind of I clicked on it out of like, I wonder what this says, and I think it was written by a gay guy, was this. I'm not even sure if I can read it out on air. A Taxonomy of Male Fagginess by Liam Blackford. And he basically breaks down all the different types of gay men and their behaviors, and he talks about gay face and gay voice and femness and butchness, and it's really autistic breakdown of all the different types of gay men. Straight acting gay guys, bisexual men, sus men, he calls them, straggarts, which is men who are a little like Barack Obama, who's kind of a straggart, right? It's kind of
like straight faggot,
something like this. And then straight men attracted to transgender women, twinks, and then there are various redacted categories. Category 8 and 9 are redacted. And then category 10 was just simply vain men who fuss over their appearance. For any metrosexuals,
so that's like,
hipsters,
that's like
gym rats, looks maxers.
Herman Goering would fit into that category then.
Straight men who engage in horseplay. Right, I mean, this is a really like straight male drag queens. It's really autistic.
Simon, what about the scenes in JFK where they're all painted gold? What does that come under? What's the name for that?
Well, gosh, I don't know.
Because he isn't it Joe Pesci abuses the Clay Shaw at some point by calling him a fag?
They're all having an orgy. Yeah, an orgy painted gold while watching films of Nazi youth.
But he refers but Pesci's character refers only to Clay Shaw as a fucking he's sort of disgusted by what a gay he is, even though he was there as well.
Yeah, you're mine, Mary.
Yeah, those scenes are disturbing. It's like just flashback scenes while something else is happening, but it's like Jesus. It's like really debauched looking, big mansion and they're painted in gold.
Yeah,
yeah, that's right. And he gets naked Kevin Bacon to do things for him under the table, doesn't he? In the big banquet hall he has.
But anyway, where this article got interesting for me was right at the end, because he basically excludes from the category of fagginess the beta male. He says the beta, the weakling, the cuck, the wuss, right? These are excluded because alphaness in general, he is claiming for his own, right? He says fagginess, unbridled and unchained, is a Nietzschean expression of will, and therefore, if you're a beta, you cannot. You're just excluded. And the only other two people who are categories of people who are excluded are the anti-fag, a man who is not faggy in any way, and women. So I found that kind of interesting because he ties together Nietzscheanism with homosexuality, which is interesting to come back to Kurto and the Soviet Union, because the Soviets made the same move basically and said, there's something that goes together. The fash are gay. Yeah, homosexuality is fascist.
Interesting.
This is a long-standing observation. Yeah, the more kind of avowedly sort of right-wing in the Nietzschean sense a movement gets, the more it just attracts gays. It's just.
But more,
I suppose there is some rationality to that, because it's like if they just find it manly, if the gays observe it and Just find it, manly looking.
Well, that was a lot of the early communist propaganda in Germany against the National Socialists. Was that it was just like a bunch of 20-year-old boys like using the meetings as an excuse to have gay orgies and pretend to be, not have to have girlfriends and things. So I don't know.
So the leftists would put out a leaflet or whatever saying, "Look, this guy like Ernst Röhm's gay and all these other guys, right?"
Well,
And then other people in the left, like further left, would attack them for their homophobia for doing that.
I don't know that they did actually because you know how the left are always sort of tactical. They always know when to shut up, unlike the right.
Yeah.
So that I think a lot of the kind of really high-minded fringe, like we need everyone to be gay and trans or whatever type leftists that were around then, would just have stayed quiet because they could see it was a useful attack from the point of view of the mass on the National Socialists. So I think it was Maxim Gorky who said the famous quote about the way to destroy fascism is to destroy homosexuality first. It will vanish once you get rid of that.
Well, in my essay that I mentioned, The Engine of Compulsory Conformity, I also noted how the far left was integrated with the gay underworld, but that was in like London and Britain. It's a different context.
But I think you would
certainly
probably
spies.
have to, if the ones attracted to the right aren't going to be the ones wearing like nose rings and looking sort of ill and having a lot of bum sex. I would think that those would be your more kind of like sensitive young man sorts of homosexual, the kind of BAP sphere type, sort of still annoying faggots, but right wing.
I can imagine young Charlie Downs would have a good gay following.
Oh, a big time, yeah.
Well, I mean, kind of like homoerotic element of.
Yeah.
But you don't mean cultivated by Charlie. You mean
no. I'm just saying that he's got the sort of. I mean, I remember this. In fact, this drama professor, right, who directed lots of shows, clearly raging, but for some reason he just wouldn't admit it to me, or like he was old fashioned in the closet. But he would always cast, his lead would always be a kind of strapping, muscle bound 20-something. They'd have to have their top off and he'd put them in a toga and he'd kind of, there was his productions were ragingly, and I mean ragingly, obviously homoerotic in nature. And I can imagine him casting Charlie in that in his kind of his kind of pervy old man homosexual lust.
I'll tell you what then. Why don't we do a book review over on my channel one day this next couple of weeks of the Pink Swastika? The book about how all the Nazis were supposedly gay. Caused a big stir in the 90s. Should we look at that? Might be good.
Interesting idea. Shall we move to Curto? Or it's somewhat disconcerting is that my Substack thought, here's an article that he's going to really like. Let's suggest this, and then I clicked on it as well. So it was kind of right that I would be interested in that. Why is that?
It sort of speed reads with some sort of algo all of your content and looks for the hidden agenda and says he's screaming out from the closet for this. Let's bung it in his feed. Cruel.
Михаил Сергеевич, его эрудицию, его умение держаться перед телевизором, его умение говорить экспромтом.
Sorry to go on there, but do you think there's some sort of like sexual tension between Charlie Downs and that Alex Phillips? Because she is mental.
The lady doth protest too much.
She is absolutely mental. And I don't know, my knowledge of women just says, is there something else driving this? Because I don't think it's just purely politics. This seems like personal in some way. I'm just wondering if she came onto him and he was like, no, I'm not interested or something, and therefore
I'm right wing.
I seem to remember the first time he went on Talk TV. I think she might have been the first person he talked to. I remember because he was quite full on, and I remember I might have said to you, AA, he was quite impressed that the first appearance he made, he got Schmittian friend-enemy distinction into the conversation very quickly. And he explained this on air for the benefit of listeners. I thought, whoa, this is interesting. And I think she was kind of a bit overwhelmed by his ferocity of attack. So, yeah. on the whole issue. Not on her, but I mean, they were friendly at that point, I think. But
I still think she's very female Alan Partridge.
Yeah.
She's got a touch of the Goodwins about her, you know.
I prefer her to Matt Goodwin. She's more like what a woman, you know, it's like it's not that crazy for her to be the way she is, but Matt Goodwin is something wrong with him. It's something weird.
Well, I didn't know this when I did the streams last week and, you know, yesterday, but I happened to watch Connor on Lotus Eaters, which I think got, if you don't mind me saying, Connor, a little bit gossip heavy, right? It was a little bit heavy on the inside baseball, but I didn't know that it was Alex Phillips who rang around all of the different newspapers with the Charlie. It was Alex Phillips personally who made that happen. This story.
Just to say as well, because for some people were sort of having a go over my comments last time about, or at least a few weeks ago, about, you know, why I don't like people who are in that Westminster-y media-y bubble. And one of the big reasons is because they always degrade to the level of like playground gossip about each other. Like they're so, that world is so fixated on its own importance. They're willing to bring out things like this pointless like gossip war between some annoying intellectually feeble woman and fucking Charlie, whatever his name is. I mean, it's this is one of the reasons, right? Because it's this shouldn't. No one should have to put up with this. Basically,
I did think Connor went a bit far on that. If anybody's seen
Connor,
it,
sorry, Connor,
yeah,
not Charlie.
Connor went a bit far because he brought up the fact that Alex Phillips didn't go to his wedding, but then the fact that she did a show that morning and put a picture of herself up on Twitter having a drink when she was meant to be at this wedding. I don't know. It just seems like a level of kind of personal stuff that maybe shouldn't be discussed in public. But
he's also quite keen to talk about how many people he knows in the media and stuff, isn't he? Was it Connor though, or somebody? Yeah, I think it was Connor mentioned that apparently. I mean, this is just rumor, but that, you know, there was when like Reform first made like a clear response to Restore's offer of a pact.
Yeah,
it came from a spokesman. It wasn't from the mouth of Farage, although Farage does issue messages from his own mouth every day. It was some spokesman. I think someone said that spokesman was acting like without authority or something.
Yeah, apparently it was a non-sanctioned thing, but then from what I can make out, there's been a lot of kind of active sabotage of the pact. So all these stories in the Daily Telegraph, the bidding of Alex Phillips and people like this, basically just doing whatever they can to wreck it by, in effect, dobbing on Charlie, trying to get him into trouble.
I would note, though, that she said that ring around she did, which I absolutely condemn her for, was nevertheless several weeks or months ago. Is that right?
So it was just ammo they were sitting on, right? It was just like
she said people didn't. Yeah. She said it herself, didn't she? That she said that people didn't take any interest, and she was annoyed that like this story's come up now, with her having warned about the threat of Charlie Downs or whatever 2 months ago or something.
Yeah,
that's what she was saying. She was like pissed off that people didn't listen to her, but now they're listening to Alistair Heath or whatever.
I don't like to psychoanalyze though, but I speculate that Alex Phillips is a woman scorned. That's what her behaviour to me smacks of revenge for something, woman scorn type behaviour rather than a purely political thing. Because her behaviour is too mental otherwise. Do you know what I mean? It seems personal.
I could well imagine she tries to get a ride on the younger guys as well, to be a bit crude. And like, yeah, some of them don't go for it. You know.
Do you remember a few years ago there was that Russian theatre siege in Moscow, where I think it was Chechen terrorists took over a theatre full of people, and eventually, you know, the Russians sent the soldiers in. I think they put like fentanyl gas through the air ducts to knock everybody out, and then they went in and kind of shot all the terrorists. And I read a bit about this a while back, that one of the things they considered, the terrorists were male and female. There were guys with guns and there were women in burqas who had been strapped up to bomb vests. And when they went in, there was probably a sort of priority to deal with the threats in a kind of order of immediacy. But there was some thinking I read about in the Russian special forces. They said one of the priorities is to shoot the women first, because in a situation where they're backed into a corner, women are more likely, even just to scorn you, just to spite you, to blow themselves up, just as an act of irrational, hysterical hostility. So you deal with them first. They'll do something more dangerous than the men. The men may hesitate, they may hide, they may try to shoot back. But the women, if they've got a grenade in their hand, they'll set it off because they're just completely overtaken by a kind of malicious spite. And so you always deal with them first.
Fascinating. Probably good tactics. Probably very good tactics. Yeah, go on, Horace.
Oh, well, this guy on screen is Yazov, right? We had him earlier in Trauma Zone, didn't we?
He's the last marshal of the Soviet Union in charge of the military, yeah. And he was one of the August coup plotters who they tried to sideline Gorbachev when he was off at his villa on the Crimea. And unfortunately, they just didn't follow through, basically. And they didn't have the kind of the will to power to act hard and fast enough to take over.
Just last week, there was someone talking about Yanayev, I think, wasn't it? He was kind of the political cabinet head of this coup. And they said he was trembling. You could see him trembling. So you could tell it wasn't worth joining this coup because it was going to fall apart.
Just the last little non-Curto comment I'll get out of the way. For some reason, there's been an outbreak of P. Diddy related conversation in the comments, and people are saying, "Well, I once dressed up as Puff Daddy, P. Diddy. Am I a fan of his?" Obviously, I disavow Diddy now, given that we know that he's a wrong un. But unfortunately, my daughter has taken to calling me Diddy rather than Daddy or Dad. And every time she starts, I say, "Don't call me Diddy because he's a bad egg. He's a bad egg." But she finds it really funny. And so now, every time she calls, she's, "Oh, how are you doing, Diddy? Diddy?" And I can't stop her calling me Diddy now. So I'm trying to somehow get her to do that. But I think she's doing it in retaliation for my calling her Scamp or Scampy. Or
too clever for you.
I recently figured out that. Do you remember the character Woody Woodpecker? I recently figured out that she is basically Woody Woodpecker, as annoying as Woody Woodpecker. Like that little laugh that he does and the little kind of high-pitched voice. So I started calling her Woody Woodpecker as well. But the more I call her these names, the more she calls me Diddy. So I don't know how to. She's escalating. I don't know.
Someone feeding her subversive Ken Dodd material, like the Diddy Men, all that kind of stuff he used to do.
It could be a Ken Dodd psyop or something. But,
someone in the chat is literally called P. Diddy. So I mean, for all we know, he's here.
He is a wrong one, right? Did he?
Yeah.
I mean, did he go to jail in the end? What happened with him?
I think so. Didn't he? I thought he's in prison now.
I think he is in prison. I think he's in prison. Yeah. I never really looked into what it was about. Some sort of sex parties, wasn't it?
Isn't he in the same prison as Maduro? I read somewhere.
Is he?
Someone else famous. Yeah. Apparently, it's like a prison for famous people. They need extra security or something.
Wow.
Ghislaine Maxwell there as well.
Can you imagine if P. Diddy makes an in-jail alliance with Maduro and somehow then becomes like a kind of political player in Venezuela when he comes
like
out?
a Che Guevara to his Castro. Yeah.
He's in a prison called Fort Dix. So, I mean...
Whoa.
There you go.
He's probably having the time of his life.
He's in there with
he's gay, isn't he?
Coke. So there's Martin Shkreli, the guy that was the financier guy, famous a few years ago.
Maduro's all man though, so he's not. Maduro's not getting involved with these freak-offs. He's a man's man. He's a fucking man's man.
No, I can't see Maduro on this list.
When Maduro dies, P. Diddy will do a tribute song to him, and it will finally be another good song in his back catalogue.
Maybe Maduro comes in for a verse on his next album. Be amazing.
Could be.
Spanish rap.
Because he's a drug lord, so P. Diddy would look up to him, wouldn't he? He's like,
be like, Maduro style. He's pretty gangster. Yeah. What happened to Maduro is pretty gangster if you think about it. So he'd be like,
Yeah.
Anyway,
the feds got him in the end.
сам себе.
Залезли туда, и так, откуда уже не вылезешь.
Совершенно правильно.
Во-первых, я хотел бы сделать все для того, чтобы не потребовалось применять силу в отношении гражданского населения. Мы должны сделать все для того, чтобы не допустить никаких эксцессов.
See his hands trembling? He tried to cover it up by pressing them together.
A bit of the old Keir Starmers there.
The full force of the law.
Do you know my missus, who doesn't really talk about politics? She said, "How have we got this guy Andy Burnham as prime minister? Like, who is he? I've never heard of him ever, and now he's the prime minister." And I don't think we should underestimate the extent to which lots of people are like, "Who? Well, where's this guy come from? Oh, right, okay." Because he did come a bit from nowhere, didn't he?
I do remember him as a minister under Blair or Brown, but he was like a nothing.
He wasn't like a major minister, though. He wasn't in the cabinet. Really.
And I think he got scandaled out. Like, I don't think it was necessarily his fault, but he resigned because of some scandal that someone else or something. I don't know. He was nothing. Yeah, it was just.
But the extent to which Labour think they've got an ace in our sleeve here, I don't know. I feel like he doesn't have a lot of name recognition. That people just.
Do you remember when we first talked about him? You were going around and saying, "What do you know about him?" And I said, "Well, he's been a kind of non-news item. He's always kept his allegiances very vague, and he keeps in with the people he needs to keep in with to stay where he is. But he's never really come out, so to speak, about anything. And I feel that's the way he's conducted a lot of his career, is just biding his time, isn't it?"
By the way, Hat, I wanted to get you in the Elite Theorist shop, but I didn't have a photo of you. So
no, I'd rather you didn't. I don't
couldn't find any. There's no pictures of you anywhere. So
no, there's
you
not.
weren't in it.
And I'd like to keep it that way.
Maybe you three could be like the SW1s. Do you remember that in Public Enemy? There was like Public Enemy, and then there were the SW1s who were like security
I
for.
Don't know. I don't know who that is.
Well, that's where Parliament is, right? You saying we're like lobby journalists? We're like
no. Do you remember the hip hop group Public Enemy? Chuck D and Flavor Flav, right?
Yeah.
There was one who rapped, and there was one with the giant clock, and they had the producer who was Terminator X, right? That was the core of the group. But then they also had a security arm who didn't sing, but they just kind of appeared on the side looking hard. The SW1s, yeah.
Didn't know that.
Well, why don't I come as like one of the residents or something with like a tuxedo and a big eye as the head?
Yeah, have something on your head.
Or like what was it? Who's the band that's got a robot? Not what are they called? No, the one that did. You know what I mean? Daft Punk. That's it. Oh. Where they like it's got a robot head. I don't
know. Let me just show you these characters, because it is something, right? Public Enemy had several members who didn't do anything. They were just security. They just followed them around in these. They followed them around in shades and these kind of military uniforms, looking hard, basically, and they didn't do anything else.
They're meant to look like Black Panthers. That's very similar to Black Panthers.
Right? They look a bit like the Tonton Macoute, Simon, don't they?
Yeah,
Hazy.
They're sort of like a militant version of Bez from Happy Mondays.
They also had a member called Professor Griff, who was like a resident academic or something, who also didn't sing, or he was just kind of like he'd come in and make some anti-Semitic comments occasionally.
Is that what was it? That was his title, like Professor in Residence or something.
Like Professor Griff, yeah. He was just like, "What do you do?" "Oh, I'm an intellectual. I don't, and he just come in and give like, political rants on occasion. It was weird. Public Enemy are a weird group, if you think about it.
They disavowed him in like the early 90s. Was that right? They were
I think
forced to. They were heavily
I
pressured.
think because he was under heavy pressure for being an anti-Semite, apparently, because he was into Farrakhan. I think, as many of them are. You're never that far away from Farrakhan in the rap scene.
And were they on Def Jam? Do you know what label they were on? Like,
Public Enemy.
Def Jam now, at least, is the same company as Island Records, which is definitely a Jewish-owned company.
Right.
But I don't know if they were on Def Jam.
He actually rejoined the group in 1998, Professor Griff. I've just learned.
When anti-Semitism became all right again.
So, well, I don't know what label they were on. But, yeah, the S1Ws don't even have links on Wikipedia. That's, yeah, anyway, let's get back to USSR, shall we?
Michael Jackson said some stuff that was construed as anti-Semitic as well, wasn't it? Sorry.
Chuck D on one of his famous songs raps, Elvis was the hero of the most. Yeah, Elvis was the hero of the most, but he never meant shit to me. Motherfucker was racist, simple and plain. And John Wayne. Now, I can believe John Wayne was racist, but is there any evidence that Elvis is racist? Where does that claim come from, that Elvis is racist? Is that like a known thing?
He had like a really deep South accent.
You can't just assume he was racist, though. Is there any evidence that Elvis was racist? Like,
I would imagine him. I'd reckon Presley more likely than John Wayne, but maybe neither. John Wayne was like he thought of himself as a policeman, but didn't he have that even? I don't know. Like, I don't think John Wayne was at all racist. I think he.
It would surprise me if he wasn't a man of his era. No.
He sort of imagined himself as a figure of authority or something, weirdly, because he played a lot of characters like that and got confused. Well, Jonathan Bowden said that anyway. But Presley might have, I don't know, might have been like a Southern Democrat. I don't think there's much to that.
But his whole
he did have a deep.
His whole act was like doing black music. So how can he?
Yeah.
Or was Chuck D saying like he got rich doing black man stuff and therefore that's racist?
It's probably that, because there's a big leftist thing that Elvis was the white man who stole black music and got famous off it. That's like a well-known kind of thing repeated.
Right. Okay, so he wasn't actually suggesting that.
It's probably that he was referring to.
I see. Professor Griff said in an interview in the Washington Times that the Jews are the cause of the majority of wickedness in the world. Because of the media scrutiny this received, he had to leave the group. And also the group were accused of being racist, homophobic, and misogynistic. So Griff was fired, but then later rejoined after apologizing for the remarks that he'd made. So,
Wimp.
But I don't believe for a second that Professor Griff took back his views. But anyway, carry on.
Do you remember our Professor Griff moment in England about 5 years ago? Wiley. Do you remember Wiley going on a rant about, I don't know, Jewish control of the music industry? Yeah. If people don't know Wiley, he's not that famous, but he was like I don't know what's it called, grind or what's the name of that genre? Grime. Sorry.
Yeah.
Grime. Yeah, he's a rapper basically. It's a kind of British London sort of rap.
Singer.
Yeah, he's a rap singer from the Projects.
Yeah, the rap
singing
singer.
about the feds and singing about the pain
supermarket.
Of,
the little ramp.
Yeah. And he went on a completely just like honest rant about his experiences of the music industry, and was soon. It took a few days though for them to bring him to heel, but he did apologise.
I think Simon is put out at our dishonesty where we said we talk about Kurto and we're talking about rap.
Oh, sorry. I said to try to get it back. I talked about a narco-tyranny yesterday, and during that I mentioned that in the Soviet Union it was kind of well known that a lot of normal crime was kind of, they let that go and they were more concerned with thought crime. And just to tie it back, a major talking point of Public Enemy, I seem to recall, was that when you call 911, so in this country we call 999, But if you're in an African American community in America, if you call the police, let's say there's made a murder, for example, they always claim that the police just wouldn't show up, that the response time, like they just wouldn't come. They're probably so fed up of being called out, they just didn't bother coming anymore. So there's the anarcho part of the anarcho tyranny. So, yeah. There you go. How's that, Simon? A segue.
Very good. Very good. Excellent segue.
Wood.
Come on.
Also,
leave the old ladies alone.
But it's a bit harsh of Kanye not to bring Professor Griff back when he was going through his episode. Could have brought Professor Griff back to the masses, couldn't he? Given him a platform, but Kanye chose not to do that and instead, walked his woman around on a lead, showing her ass to everybody. Weird.
Do we know what esteemed institution Mr. Griff earned his professorship? Is it like Caltech?
I don't think he's actually a PhD, Horace. I think he just declared himself a professor.
Still less a professor, which is even better, right? Okay.
He got his PhD in the University of Life.
Hard Knocks, Ghetto.
Нет. Извините, пожалуйста, можно вас спросить, что вы думаете о перестройке?
Не знаю, я даже и представления не имею. Я свое знаю, что отдаилась, приехала домой.
An ideal woman in many ways. Imagine she existed now. It'd be fantastic. You've got no views on anything apart from milking cows and cycling. Fantastic.
Actively resisting giving her opinion. I like it.
Yeah. There's no slot that could get to this woman.
Или пошла пешком-то.
Скажите,
а вот поесть-то нечего. Я встаю 3 часа утра, иду на дойку. А мне чего, я пришла в магазин, нет ничего здесь. Курить мужик также на ферме целыми днями находится. Что в том месяце по 2 пачки дали курить. А он ходит, то тут стреляй за него, то там стреляй. Проси, хоть и я и женщина-то, а проси у всех-то.
А скажите...
А сейчас вот у лужи и...
She's doing what kids used to do at my school. Nip on there, bud. Although instead of trying to get pieces of toast, she's trying to get little cadging little tokes off people's cigarettes.
Cigarettes.
Сама-то шлепнулась и халат с себя сняла.
Reminds me of a great song. I think I played it on AA radio once, Hat, but you should look it up. It's called The Moocher. A guy basically, I think it was like a 1950, obscure 1950 song, but he's basically like bumming around trying to cadge cigarettes off people.
I think I know the song.
Just mooching about. I love that song.
I think I know the guy. I think I've met.
Yes, we had toast at school. 10p a slice, and people used to beg up money to try to get that toast, and also they'd like ask for nips, i.e. ask for bites of toast off other people.
Yeah, nip on that. But
Cadge is a great word, by the way.
Cadge or something, yeah.
I didn't catch what cadge is in Russian, though. It'd be good to know that.
In space, no one can hear you, Cadge.
That's a very specific word to use in the translation, isn't it? Cadge.
Yeah.
But I guess it's the specific, because it's not like begging or borrowing. It has that specific, like, I just need a bit of that. I just need a bit of that,
Well, people say, could I bum a smoke? That's an American thing, isn't it?
Yeah, bum a cigarette. Yeah.
The word cadge comes from a back formation of the 15th century noun cadger, meaning an itinerant peddler or carrier. Over time, traveling salesmen who lived by their wits shifted in public perception into beggars, turning the earlier action of cadging or peddling goods into the modern meaning of mooching or begging. So there you go. The noun cadger in the 15th century referred to a traveling dealer or pack horse carrier.
Things we learn, eh?
с утра, в тот день, когда это случилось, в первом же сеансе связи сказали, что сейчас мы передадим вам важное сообщение. Конечно, для нас это была большая неожиданность. И не очень даже поняли, что произошло сначала, потому что все-таки сеанс связи достаточно короткий. Нам дали какую-то порцию информации, и мы начали дальше додумывать, что же все-таки это происходит, для того, чтобы... Но за людей, которые там на земле, мы боялись, потому что если бы начались беспорядки, естественно, мы опасались там за свои семьи, за своих друзей. И просто за людей, которых мы даже не знаем. Но если бы в Москве начались военные действия, то, конечно, это было бы ужасно.
Sorry to interrupt this, but Simon, I think you'd know this better more than most. The tank is probably not a very good vehicle or instrument for trying to keep law and order on the streets. Rolling a tank down the street doesn't seem to be very fit for that task.
It's not a good idea, and later on we discover it goes a bit wrong in a nasty way, in a nasty, squashy way.
It's a good symbol, though. You know, the army's here, the tanks are here.
Yeah.
You know, traditional coup image, isn't it? Tanks on the streets.
Impractical for civic policing is all I might say.
You could properly block a street, though, if you just park it across the width of it. Useful for that.
If you're going to pound your way through a crowd, I guess probably an armoured personnel carrier with a machine gun on top is probably the best thing. So you can chop them down as you're approaching and then splatter them underneath it.
You've been thinking about this, haven't you?
But without the sort of the brash obviousness of a tank with a big cannon on it that's kind of superfluous, you know.
Да нет, можешь не быть. Ну, понимаешь, я понимаю. А у меня грязно проснулся. Нормально у тебя руки? Иди садись на улицу. Нет, не садись. Нет, Настя, не садись. Я там таскал. Ты капкан. Да что?
Все то, что сказано товарищем Янаевым и обнародовано в документах.
Can I just say how exciting it is to see Gorbachev? He just seems like this is a man of history somehow, you know, with his very distinctive head mark. I feel like he's got something to him that you don't see with a lot of political figures today. You know, like Andy Burnham, for example, does not have this sense of like, oh, this is a, you know, Putin has got it. Putin has got it. Russian leaders often do, I think.
Cult of youth that we have now, though, isn't it? Everybody wants a young
Trump
leader.
has got it. Looking back, you'll think, oh, yeah, this was an era. This is something, right? It's hard to put into words what that is, but Gorbachev has it, I would say.
Did Yeltsin have it?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I think he does, but that could just be my perception, personally. But
He had it, but he was also just a major drunkard.
yeah. Thatcher had it. Whatever that thing is that we're talking about, Thatcher had it as well. Where you think, oh yeah, this is, you know, someone of real importance.
This is a man apart from the herd.
Yeah.
Этого комитета все это грубая ложь, подлог. Совершено, по сути дела, государственный.
I mean, say what you want about him, Churchill had it as well. Even though I hate Churchill, I'll give Churchill that. He had something, you know. Whereas Clement Attlee, not so much.
Yeah, bank clerk.
Раз это так.
Or aura. That's probably the word we're looking for, really, isn't it? It's aura. It's kind of like something.
То и само решение о принятии обязанностей президента товарищем Янаевым и последовавшие затем решения, все они незаконны.
People mentioning Blair. Controversially, I don't think Blair had it when he was the actual prime minister. I think he's acquired it in his long post-retirement. I think Blair has it more now than when he was the actual prime minister. I don't know if you agree with that.
Definitely.
He has more of the Dark Lord thing now.
Does Alex Phillips have it?
No, I don't think she does. No,
No,
she doesn't.
no.
Tell you who else had it too. Elvis Presley, who we mentioned earlier. If you ever see any footage of Elvis, tell you what, he had aura. He really did.
Patriarch cadging a lift there, by the way.
Hopefully a real patriarch.
So are we saying that Russia in 1991 just had an awful lot of cadging going on? Everybody was just cadging all.
Well, what
all
else
over
could you
the place.
do? What else could you do?
Okay, having asked earlier what is the Russian for cadge, there is in that speech, I think it's titled on YouTube, "The Polish Disease" or something, "The Polish Problem." It's a speech by Rothbard from about 84, 85. And he's talking about how various things are evidently not working in the Eastern Bloc. And he says a lot of things in Soviet Union still function despite, a lot of organizational problems, bureaucratic problems, and so on. Excuse me. By the word he says is biat or something. It's like just exchanging things to get things done. Just I don't know. It's kind of corrupt, but it is basically to make things work. So maybe that basically meant cadging. I need to cadge some like ytterbium supplies off you, and you send me your.
I mean, I've just had a look. There's that saying that the Eskimos have 1,000 words for snow or something. I think, unsurprisingly, given Russia's history, they have about 8 words for cadge that all mean roughly the same thing. So you've got, they've got klianchit. I'm not going to pronounce this right. Klianchit is the most common. That would literally be cadge. Then you've got proprashainichat, which means panhandle, and that's an alternate one. You got pesta, plague, cadge, vliakinchivat, and there's a whole phrase here. There's like zitnya chuzoishet, which means to sponge upon or to mooch upon. So there you go.
You know why they got so many words for it? It's because they did so much of it that they needed different.
Yeah, exactly.
It's probably like slight, subtle gradations. Can I just say that guy in the chat saying Elvis didn't have aura? What a ridiculous statement! There's a very good bit of footage of Elvis with Frank Sinatra, where Elvis is pretty young and Frank Sinatra is getting on, and you can tell that Sinatra knows what's up. You watch that footage and tell me Elvis didn't have aura. It's a ridiculous statement. I don't think anybody had more aura than Elvis. I don't even like Elvis that much, but to say he didn't have aura is ridiculous.
Exactly.
Young Brando had aura as well.
You watch the early footage of him, and it's obvious.
This car in the foreground here, the sort of sick-coloured car, it's got curtains. It's got an actual curtain rail across the back window.
Yeah, it's an Eastern European thing. I think it literally comes from the old days of the gypsy caravans and things. You just have curtains.
I was wondering if they just have a really awkwardly angled sun for a lot of the day. It's like very slow sunset or something.
Maybe it's because they have to travel such far distances. You have to sleep in your car more than you would in the country like Britain. I don't know.
I'll go with that.
Young Brando is not a rapper. I'm talking about Marlon Brando, you idiot. Taking Yeltsin, can you lose aura through something like an addiction? Like, clearly he was an alcoholic, right?
Not necessarily. Sometimes you can kind of gain it in the way that, you know, there's such a thing as a cool drunk, or
We
like
only
a
remember
like a
drunk Yeltsin, though, don't we?
Sherlock Holmes gained aura because of his cocaine addiction. He didn't lose it, right? As a character, obviously he's fictional, but it adds to the aura, doesn't it?
Do you think fat Marlon Brando, when he was old, still had aura?
Yeah, but a different one. Like that's it. He kind of became a different person in the same way that young Orson Welles and old Orson Welles have different aura. It's not
But
the
they
same.
still had aura. They still didn't lose.
They still
it
have
completely.
aura. It's just a different. A sort of rambunctious, ambitious, talented young man has a different aura to the kind of respected, 5-course dinner eating old man in his cape and hat. It's just different.
Yeah. Somebody asked me which footballers have aura. My mind immediately went to Andrea Pirlo. I always thought he had aura. Just a cool guy.
Did you Did you ever see the video of was it mayor of Toronto smoking crack? Like the big
Doug
fat
Ford,
guys,
was
Doug
it?
Ford.
Rob
Yeah,
Ford.
yeah, yeah.
Rob,
He used
Rob
to.
Ford or Doug Ford. Yeah.
There's this footage leaked of him like sat in a basement in his house just smoking crack and talking about how much of a fag I think Trudeau was. And it kind of helped. It kind of made him more popular. It just sort of,
And that was while he was mayor, right? He was
that
doing
was
it while
while
he
he
was a
was
crack
mayor.
addict
Yeah.
while mayor. Yeah.
So people in the chat are saying like Oliver Reed and his huge drinking, that kind of gave him aura as well. But it's not always true. I mean, if someone's got a really sad, because very, very often, because it's you're only seeing the fun bits of the addiction, right? You're not seeing them waking up with the DTs and vomiting, before they have a drink and kind of get into character. So it depends on which bits of the character.
If somebody ever gets the very kind of druggy, emaciated, druggy look, where that kind of skinny, junky kind of look, I feel that's aura killing a lot of the time. If you see,
that's very true. So I think Yeltsin being kind of it's like, look at Churchill's drinking. He's remembered as something of a hero for that, wrongly in my opinion, because it completely made him do a lot of terrible things during the war. Whereas Yeltsin, who probably actually didn't drink as much as Churchill, if we're being realistic, is remembered as a hopeless loser in a lot of modern historiography. So depends, I suppose. Depends on the person.
Andrew Roberts claims with utmost seriousness that Churchill was never drunk during the war. He did drink, but he was never drunk the whole Second World War.
That's impossible. Because he used to drink whiskey all day, pretty much.
And loads of other people say he was drunk.
Yeah. Almost every major general, field marshal, admiral, diplomat, politician, if you go through the actual diaries, which David Irving's the only historian who actually has, they all contain references to Churchill's just being shit-faced all day. In fact, by about...
Sorry.
Well, yeah, as you say, he'd be making major policy and war decisions while hammered, and very often by about 8 o'clock, he would just be useless. He'd be on the floor. They couldn't. They had to get voice actors to do the speeches.
And sometimes people were coming to him to make major decisions at 2 a.m. That would happen on occasion, and he was drunk by that time, definitely
pissed, completely pissed.
Yeah. Are you on mute, AA?
AA? No.
So sorry, chaps. I've had a bit of a embarrassing moment here. I was smoking my cigar, and a fly landed on my thumb, made me jump, made me throw my cigar on the chair in front of me. The ash has gone everywhere, so I'm having to do a bit of an emergency cleanup while this is happening. So,
See, all of this comedy happened while the mic was silent.
That's kind of a metaphor, isn't it?
It's so much going on under the layers of this show.
Looney Tunes noises in the background. Also, just while we're paused, Simon, this coup, whenever I read about this coup or see footage of it seems like the stupidest coup in history, because they kind of rolled into Moscow and just sat there for days and let people organize. Why were they so slow? Why didn't they just go straight in and arrest everyone, and take power?
A question which I can't necessarily answer. This was the Gang of Eight who tried to isolate Gorbachev, and it was the old communist apparatchiks like Yazov and Yanayev and interior ministers, a guy called Pugo, and the prime minister Pavlov. I think it seems they were, largely without a plan. Really, they didn't have any broad support with the public, even within the military. You saw last episode there was that guy Lopatin, where there was sort of dissidence within the sort of middle junior officer ranks in the military. Yeah. And really, I mean, several of them actually killed themselves. The coup plotters very quickly after it failed. Yeah, so it's just
embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, even you saw Yazov, the marshal, there. He just didn't seem fully, they didn't seem fully up for it. They weren't able. I mean, you'll see as this episode sort of comes on with the footage, you'll see bits where the military's hesitant, and it just loses momentum. And it kind of really doesn't matter in a way because Yeltsin's already pretty much fatally crippled Gorbachev from the point of view of the public anyway, and he's going to really slam him in a minute.
But this is what James Burnham talks about when a regime loses will, right? This is what it say, they're all looking checked out, or their heart's not quite in it, or they don't really want to follow through. That's what it means when a regime loses will, no longer prepared to defend itself. So most regimes kind of, when they fall, it's for that reason more than the strength of the counter elite or anything else. So it's kind of looking easy for Yeltsin here, mainly because half of the ruling class have just given up. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah. And the people aren't up for it. The prices are going haywire in the shops. There's more shortages. The economy is shrinking. Nobody's really kind of up for more communism at this point.
Just one thing, I could partly answer your question, Hat. I think that this coup was something of a spasm because I think they just launched it within a few, very quickly after deciding to do so. They didn't have time to plan or anything.
Right.
They just apparently there was some paper that was basically going to end the Soviet Union constitutionally, and if it was agreed, it was going to be. And that was going to be voted on within a couple of days or something.
So,
and they said, we've got to move now.
Were they
kind of
hoping that it would just scare everyone into submission?
Yeah, well, they did try. They did try to demand that Gorbachev accede, and he just refused. They cut off his communications, and within the next day, he's come back to Moscow to try and take control again. But Yeltsin's already ready to jump on a tank and give a populist speech and channel the popular surge towards him, and the military are kind of ready to give up as well.
Mm. More people with aura, by the way. More people with aura. Horace, what do you think of Carlo Ancelotti? I always thought he had aura. Just cool guy. Cool. Just kind of got an aura.
Yeah. Seemed intelligent.
Looks like he could be a godfather or something like that. I always think.
I wasn't going to accuse him of crimes, but
yeah.
Oh,
I mean, if you're going to cast a don of a mafia family or something, Ancelotti would be great.
As long as he has studied acting a bit before the shoot begins. Oh yeah, have you just dropped your cigar again?
Yeah.
No. I'm trying to light a new one now. Oh, it was a calamity.
These trippy ones. Do you remember a couple of months ago you had one that was making you hallucinate and stuff? Is this one like that?
No. That was just a transcendent Upman. That was an Upman, wasn't it? Upman Churchill, actually. No, this is just a standard. It was actually a Honduran cigar I was smoking just now, and now I'm going to do a Cuban St. Louis Ray. So. And I can see the people in the comments trying to make me react by calling me the weakest link and saying I've got no aura and things like that. But I'm calm. I don't react to things. It's like water off a duck's back. You're not going to get me to react. Anyway, let's carry on.
Yeah, sorry. What the cigar that was transcendent, wasn't it called a Churchill something?
Yeah, Sir Winston. Yeah, Sir Winston.
Sir Winston. What variety?
H. Upmann Sir Winston. Fantastic.
Upmann
It
Sir
had
Winston.
2 or 3 years of aging on it as well. Fantastic, amazing. 80,
I'll
80
try one
quid
of
a
those.
stick, man. But
It's the only cigar that makes you give empires away.
well, ironically, he didn't smoke Upmann Sir Winston's. He smoked Romeo and Julietta's. So, yeah.
Your description of it made it sound like I mean someone's first experience of taking LSD or something. So I thought I'd.
It was just on a level. It was another level. I was, in Scooby Doo when they eat the massive sandwich and like float on the ceiling and float back down. I was doing that stream. It was phenomenal. But yeah, so that was a different level of cigar.
But you can't smoke like a box of them every day. They're expensive, right?
Well, I mean, a box would set you back like $3,000. I haven't. I mean, I like my cigars, but not that much. And plus,
you're not doing that every Wednesday.
Good luck finding a box of Sir Winnies in the current market.
Чего, Евгений Иванович? Сегодня будем тебя по телевизору смотреть. Смотреть вместе. Или завтра. Конечно.
Going back to Churchill and his aura, by the way, sorry to harp on this, but do you remember all the way back in Oceans Apart? I thought Churchill was a little bit aura-mogged when he was with FDR and Stalin in some of those meetings. I thought he looked small and kind of like shit compared to the other two in some of those meetings.
I know what you mean.
If you're talking about the pictures of Yalta, they clearly do. Like it's like the other two are the mates and the big guys.
Well, I mean, it could have been
Churchill's the hanger-on.
It could have been Curto's narration and what was actually going on and so on. But there are scenes where he's sitting in the middle and he looks kind of small and he's so pathetic, like playing these little emotional blackmail games and like really fucking almost womanly behavior in those meetings. And I mean, I've never really liked Churchill that much, as many people from Wales don't, but it was really Oceans Apart that really properly soured me on Churchill. I was like, the behavior on this guy. So I would say like in my eyes, he lost aura in some of that footage because he was just being such a pathetic. I mean, speaking of cadging, he was basically cadging. He's nip on that. Give us some more bombs, maybe.
Well, this is it because he's there representing basically a dead empire, whereas the other two are at the height of their powers.
Especially at that moment, that was when Britain and Churchill personally and Britain just was forced to realise and acknowledge that the other two were just determining things, and Britain was just getting what it could at Yalta specifically.
Thanks, Churchill.
It's the greatest Britain of all time.
Oh, don't get me started, Horace.
Греко-католицький священник, і його пізнали його родичі по зубах. В нього були видалені 3
that always pissed me off about the Civilization games. They're great games. But at the end, the Hall of Fame, they got Neville Chamberlain at the bottom, just above Dan Quayle. Right near the top, under I think Roosevelt is the top, wasn't it? The greatest leader of all time. Churchill was like second or third, Sid Meier has just got Boomer Truth and riddled with it.
Just to say about all this footage of the graves, I didn't mention last week, so I hadn't done the research properly, but this section, I think it's mainly footage from Lvov, or what's called Lviv now, I think, in Ukraine, where you had a prison in the center of town. And there's a big courtyard in the middle of the prison, and they started digging it up pretty quickly because Ukraine was was hot to go independent at this time, and really it's the relics of originally that part of Western Ukraine was ruled by the Poles. The Soviets invaded in 1939 with the agreement of the Germans, as it happened. So the Soviets went in, but then they started imprisoning people and disappearing people. Initially, they'd been welcomed as liberators from the Poles. And then the Germans came in and invaded in 1941, and then they were welcomed as liberating people from the Soviets. And what had happened is, sort of during the period of the Great Terror, 37 to 41, in places like Lvov, they'd been just taking people from the prisons, shooting them, and just burying them in the courtyard. And there was sort of, thousands and thousands, up to sort of say 100,000 people who were just dumped in unmarked graves in the forests around Kiev, and sometimes in the courtyards of these prisons in the middle of towns like Lvov. And that's what they were digging up. The thing you've got to remember also at this time that makes it extra sort of poignant, I suppose, was it was the 50th anniversary in 91 of the German invasion. So there was a lot of conflicted feeling there about, but especially against anti-Soviet feeling that propelled the kind of Ukrainian nationalists from this period onwards.
Obviously, there continues, especially in Poland and Ukraine and other places as well, but especially those two countries, there continues to be like really profound enmity towards Russia, right? I don't know whether it's justified, because should the NKVD be seen as simply a Russian thing? I don't know, but that is there. That is like an aggravating factor in all politics, and a factor in NATO and a factor in the EU
Very much.
And all sorts of other stuff, yeah.
If you look on YouTube, there's a Channel 4 documentary from 1991 called Unquiet Graves, which talks about what exactly is going on. It's not the same footage necessarily, but it's these incidences of towns being dug up and the bodies being found and the relatives, seeing what's happening. And it starts with a shot inside a church that's been emptied out, and there are just dozens and dozens of open coffins with skeletons that have been dug up in it, shot in the head. This was a pretty intense time for the Ukrainian independence movement.
Also, I'll phrase what I say carefully, but when the Germans advanced into previously Soviet-controlled territories in 1941 onwards, obviously they committed some serious massacres themselves. In some cases, they were massacring people who at least were accused, I don't know whether truly or not, but were accused by the locals they found of having collaborated with the Soviets, including in crimes like this. The Katyn massacres became famous, but there's just all these others that Simon's just mentioned, just like a massive, just mass killing by the NKVD, maybe other agencies as well.
The big one's a place called Bykivnia, which is in the forest near Kiev, and there was Bykivnia.
Зуби, священник. У вхідний отвір стріляли в область нижче лівого вуха, щоб пробити основу черепа, де є життєво важливі органи.
Да, я понимаю. Но то есть странно, что нам позвонили вчера и сказали, что
вы знаете,
да, хорошо, мы организуем.
Вы знаете, сейчас начинаешь уже догадываться.
A little bit of a savage contrast there with the white balls like skulls being knocked about.
Why are all the balls white?
Don't know if Russian snooker has different rules, but it's
What's that arcade game in the corner? It looks like Popeye. Is it Popeye?
Where's the screen? Is that... It's a really shit machine.
How can they tell the cue ball from the other balls if they're all white? Stupid. People are still talking about aura. There are certain people who have only aura in one moment. For example, George W. Bush, when he does that, now watch this drive. That was one cool, absolutely cool moment for George W. Bush, but I wouldn't say he had aura the rest of the time. But in that one moment, he had aura. So there can be like people who instantly have it. And there are also people who I think gain it over time. Like Messi, in some way, was quite a gimp when he was younger, if you think about it. But at some point, he gained aura. So it's a weird
He
thing.
lost it. He lost it a couple of weeks ago when they lost the World Cup, and he stood there crying on TV. It's like, why are you doing that? He's already won the World Cup before as well.
You know, so someone mentioned Harry Kane. Whatever aura he had, he instantly lost when he did that interview with the squeaky voice. That was kind of an aura killing. I'm trying to think of other people. What about the Rock? Right, the Rock for us.
Well,
before he was the Rock, has no aura whatsoever, and then suddenly he's got a tremendous aura. I don't know how that happened. But anyway.
In the chat, RC-DL4XK, don't make me read that out again, it says Ian Beale has aura.
Oh, so, come on.
Yeah. Those charts on the wall are troop movements from the Russian Civil War on top, and the troop movements of World War II on the bottom.
Немножко чуть-чуть, конечно, опасность сейчас, вероятность чуть поменьше, но исключать все равно нельзя.
Борис Николаевич, два слова для граждан России,
потому что, значит, они сейчас, у них выхода нет. Они все а когда зверь раненый, он уже зверь может делать.
Other moments of complete aura loss. Do you remember when Elon Musk jumped behind Trump?
Oh yeah.
Remember that when he jumped excitedly in the air?
Right. Honestly,
I would say nobody has ever had less aura than Elon Musk in that one moment.
Spurg vaulting.
You know, there's kind of like a Musk derangement syndrome among some people. For my mum, it's mainly that moment, like she reacted against that more than anything else he's ever done or said, and I can sort of see why. It's like really cringeworthy, isn't it? It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
just utter minion, just a moment of self-minionization that will live in the annals.
Why are you behaving like that? What?
It's just pathetic.
Оттуда перебежчики уже нам сообщили, насколько детально было расписано, как, скажем, брать Белый дом. Это специальная группа.
Now, this may not have been predictable or intended, but people are actually now naming people who've got a distinct lack of aura and in the chat and saying that they've got aura as a joke, right? To sort of fuck with your format sort of thing. So Thunderfoot. And then also when Ian Duncan Smith said the quiet man is turning up the volume, that is one of the most cringeworthy things I've ever seen.
That is anti. Ian Duncan Smith had anti-aura. The opposite, the opposite of aura. The quiet man is turning up the volume.
The tone of voice he said that in was, I mean, it's still with me now. It's like what are you doing? What are you thinking? Oh.
Называемая группа А 7-го управления КГБ, которая специализируется на...
And Thunderfoot has negative aura as well, I would say, if he's still around. I don't know if he's still around, but...
Oh yeah, he's actually still around. He's got Musk derangement syndrome, real bad.
Этих делах сразу со всех сторон обрушить первый и второй этаж.
I seem to remember now that Thunderfoot thinks that all of Elon Musk's space stuff is all shit and that he's basically just a massive liar and all of his achievements are built on sand. Is that right?
Everything he's done is a failure, is a lie. Even when it's proven to work, he just moves on. The next thing's a lie. Yeah, it's proper deranged.
Не обрушить, а просто перестрелять все.
Девочка, с вас брат, Зачем ты это надо снимать?
Открываемых народов, демократический процесс в стране приобретает все более глубокий размах и обратимый характер. Народы России становятся хозяевами своей судьбы. Существенно ограниченный, бесконтрольный.
Нет, он не готов.
Он спит еще.
Imagine waking up with a hangover in here.
When they pass a certain point of sobriety, do they then get beaten up?
Can be punished for it. Как у нас, когда у себя дома.
Pause.
There's a man who never worked a factory shift.
Yeah, the proletariat do not need intoxication; they need clarity, clarity, and clarity. How's that working? Apparently, that's a Russian prison symbol that they do for crossed fingers to say they're political prisoners.
The army's still just been sitting in Moscow for days now, just doing nothing.
I tell you who definitely had aura. The Ayatollah, the Ayatollah, the first Ayatollah, the Sean Connery one. He had immense aura, but I never thought that the subsequent one, the one who was killed by Trump, I never thought he had aura, but the original Ayatollah had proper aura.
Just to be clear, we just saw somebody get crushed.
Yeah, there was they were trying to do this thing, as you saw, of pulling the canvas over the tanks, and there was an Afghan war veteran called Dmitry Komar. He was only about 23, and he tried to climb on to the back of the vehicle that you saw pulling the drape on, and he tried to get off, and he caught his clothing on probably one of the tracks, and he fell down, and he got crushed, I think, by the vehicle that was coming up front. And there was three protesters who were killed. Actually, there was a guy who tried to pull his body away, who then got shot, and then there was another guy who just got shot as he tried to approach some of the tanks as well. They're all given, actually, I think, posthumous medals as kind of heroes of the Soviet Union, just as the thing was kind of collapsing. And the soldiers involved, I mean, they did actually kind of put them under investigation, because the guy who was in command of this operation was only about 24 himself, and he ordered them to sort of, drive on, and ended up, crushing this guy. But they eventually, were just let off, and it was just all deemed to be, an accident in the course of, civil disruption.
Don't know about you guys, but if I'm somewhere with a crowd and I see like some cops on big horses, I back well away if I can. Let alone bloody tanks. Tanks can move fast as well.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember at the time actually seeing stuff when I was living in Australia on the news. There were crowds that were around vehicles, and there was one really horrific incident of this crowd backed around some military trucks, and the truck just leapt backwards in reverse gear and just flattened this guy dead. And yes, just stay away from big vehicles in protests.
That was the frightening thing about what we just saw there, is the way the tank drove in very quickly and then just lurched backwards, like it almost jumped backwards when they slammed it into reverse gear.
And the soldiers are probably a bit scared as well and stuff, you know.
And also, it doesn't look like they've got particularly clear orders on what they're meant to be doing. They're just kind of driving tanks around the square.
I would say getting involved in 1991 in the USSR is the worst timing possible. All you have to do is just sit it out for a couple of months more, and you're kind of home.
Stay away.
See, I used to wish that Starmer had kind of more will to just do stuff like this. You know, when Tommy Robinson and his Jew marchers would just show up in London, he should have just sent in a fleet of the Royal Tank Regiment or something. Just drive through them. Just drive straight through.
Unite the kingdom, all right? Come on.
Yeah, unite the kingdom. Yeah, unite Israel.
It'd be cool to see, if nothing else, wouldn't it? Roll the tanks.
Get what they deserve. Get what they
do it.
deserve.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other reason to stay away from tanks, because they've got machine guns on them.
Внимание всем! Я командир самообороны нашего президентского дома. Я с группой своих спецназов Александров, которого вы видели вчера по всем программам.
I hate to see these images, gentlemen. Do you know why? People are getting ideas about bottom-up power and power of the mob, and just hate to see these images. Hate to see them.
One of the guys
Sorry, Horace.
One of the guys sort of pursuing the tank there is like carrying a bat, as though that matters, you know. So he's hard. But yeah, that won't do anything.
It's people should remember this is just the byproduct of elites having a conflict. It's a bunch of high-ranking military officers attacking the sitting president. That's all it is. These crowds aren't making any difference.
This is the Avachinsky volcano, which is a live volcano in Kamchatka.
And this is in the Far East, is it? The furthest east province?
Yeah. It's nearly 4,000 miles. It's roughly the distance from here to Chicago, in terms of distance from Moscow. Yeah, you get a bunch of rocks to look at.
Nice.
Come and check out the magma.
I'm getting flashbacks of that barbed wire museum I went to in Texas once. It's just fucking...
Point of interest that Captain Cook noted in one of his diaries in his voyage in 1779, the Avachinsky volcano.
Are these sea lions or seals?
Walruses, something.
Walruses, sorry.
Добрый день. Извините, что вас из металла? Пожалуйста.
I am the walrus back in the USSR.
Pause for a second. This Alexander Smolensky, Simon, you spoke about him a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Is that right? It's the same guy.
That's him. Same guy, yeah. Part of this idea of the rule of the seven bankers, in a sense, like proto-oligarchs, but guys who were put up to essentially start moving assets from the Soviets, from the Soviet era, so to speak, in the form of the industries, but also, as we come to see, when the Soviet Union collapses, all the assets owned by the Communist Party and all of that out of the country into foreign banks, because they didn't have necessarily the greatest system of private banks at this stage. Smolensky was one of the first to set up private banks, and then from overseas, the money would be fed back into Russia to act as kind of the operational wealth of the oligarchs, while it was also invested overseas as well, just being moved around.
I appreciate the extent to which he is banker maxing in his looks, because he just looks like a man who would be a banker. It's just a very stereotypical kind of, Can I just ask, how are those bodies already skeletons? Were they old? Were they been killed?
Yeah, they're from the period of 37-41 from the terror, so they have been in the earth quite a while.
You don't know what happened to them. You don't. This could be just the propaganda to come back to Grosvenor Fair.
And that terror, which definitely did really happen, Professor Fur, was partly like what we called the Great Terror, right? Like purges of the party, especially, or maybe state bureaucrats as well. But then, as you said, continuing into 1941, so that's like because the Soviets obviously occupied Eastern Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, part of Romania, in those first couple of years of what we call the Second World War, but which hadn't started for them yet, because they just annexed these countries without resistance. Well, they did have to fight a bit for Eastern Poland, I think. The Soviet war against Poland that no one ever talks about. But like wherever the Soviet forces went in, whether they'd been fighting or not, the NKVD followed in. Also had its own armed forces as well, at least during the Second World War. and they would obviously just liquidate all potential resistance to Soviet control, just mostly by killing, not in every case. Sometimes, well, some people were just shipped, just cattle trucks out into Siberia or whatever, to gulags, maybe worked to death. I don't know, hardly anyone ever came home. And there's just all sorts of accounts from the start of those occupations all the way to the end of the war and after, into the late 40s, of just millions of people disappearing into the Soviet Union.
No man, no problem.
Yeah, and so the bones we're seeing there are from mass killings in those places, and then there was other people who were just shipped into the oblivion of Siberia or whatever.
I mean, I suspect this is somewhat related, that he's making a point that a lot of the menfolk in rural communities perhaps had been liquidated, and women were left behind doing agriculture at a subsistence level in many cases.
How would we fare if we were, as we are now, but living in Poland, in eastern Poland in 1939, and the Soviets took over? How would we
Not
just
going
get away
to make
with
it. Not going to make it, Horus.
Much get weeks of beatings, maybe? Do you reckon? Or would we be
Straight to
killed?
Gulag. Not going to make it.
Slaves. Okay.
That's a Tupolev Tu-134 for plane spotters, by the way.
You could have tried to use opportunism and be like, "Look, I can be of use to the party." We could become propagandists for we could just say how great it is. We could try to get a job with the Prada or something.
Prada, sure. Well, move to Milan.
Sorry,
Pravda.
Pravda, not Prada.
Yeah.
Pravda.
Horus will shop us to Putin and say, these are the three subversives I have to work with.
There are stories from Soviet history of people doing things like that and prospering. Have you heard of the guy Naftali Frenkel? Who's like one of the early prisoners of the Gulag. Somehow talked his way into like some sort of trustee. What's the word? Trustee, like a prison trustee role or something. Where you got a bit of power over other prisoners, and just ended up running the White Sea Canal project, the infamous White Sea Canal project that killed lots and lots of people. And at some point was allowed to emigrate to Israel and died in peace in Israel in like the 70s or something. I can't remember the exact story, but he was a prisoner. He was a Gulag prisoner who just talked his way out of it somehow, and probably just ratting on everyone. I don't know why.
Well, this is some of the theory behind Smolensky, the banker. People may remember I referred to the idea that in the early 80s he was pinched for fraud by the authorities, and it's thought that the intelligence services co-opted him into running their kind of extraction operation when the time came. This is part of that theory of the insertion of the security apparatus into the new capitalist or capitalized Russia.
Yeah, even in the Gulag system, there was an element of that. There was still private profits made and stuff. Like the guys running each Gulag area could become like barons. They were allowed to. This is almost impossible to believe in a way, but even under the height of Stalinism, the Gulags under Stalin, which was the height of the Gulag system, the incentive, like the value of the incentive to make a private profit was acknowledged by the system, by the Gulag system, and regional governors of their Gulag area could become personally wealthy and have a mansion and stuff, and that was known about in Moscow and stuff. It's quite amazing. But yeah, people like Smolensky even existed under Stalin in a way.
I reckon me and Hat could have made a go of saying, look, we've got a flair for structural analysis of poetry.
Yeah,
We could be
we
of
could have.
use
Yeah, we
with
taught
the Moscow
poetry, and
School. Yeah.
we could have adjudged poetry by its usefulness to the proletarian cause. You know,
It's kind of like a dice roll in an RPG, isn't it? Like does the Politburo on that day, when you try and make that excuse, happen to have calculated that it needs more of what you just said you were playing?
For non-Russian viewers, the guy on the right there is Ruslan Kazbalatov. He was the last chairman of the Supreme Soviet. We know who the others are.
What was the second one? Was the Supreme Soviet or the Soviet hierarchy, was that separate from the Politburo of the Central Committee? Or was it part of the Central Committee? It was separate from the Central Committee.
I turned to AA for the dizzying structure of the Soviet Union.
Only because you mentioned this guy.
What was the precise question, Horace?
It doesn't matter too much. I just wonder, was the Supreme Soviet or the Soviet hierarchy, the hierarchy of the Soviets, was that separate from the Central Committee of the party?
Yes.
Politburo?
Yeah.
Right.
It is a tripartite structure where there's the Central Committee and the Politburo and the General Secretary. That's one structure. Then there's the Supreme Soviet, which is a secondary structure, which had it was that guy Kalinin who was at the top of it for most of the time, and then there was the basically the Russian government, which is a third power structure, and that's why there are three. It's the General Secretary, the Premier, who's the head of the Russian government, which was actually the role that Lenin had, and then there's the chairman of the Supreme Soviet, which is for a long time was basically ceremonial. It's almost like kind of King Charles or something like that, but actually did acquire more power over time. And by this point, I think there was more power in each of those bodies. So, yeah.
So what you're going to see here, I mean, Kazbalatov, the analogy that seems to come up is that his position is kind of like the parliamentary speaker in our system. But this particular meeting here is key. This is or this press conference. This is where Gorbachev is going to be completely chopped off at the knees now. He's already been discomfited by Yeltsin walking out of the Communist Party. Yeltsin has now been elected as the president of Russia. Gorbachev is the president of the Soviet Union. And what Yeltsin is about to do is he's about to declare the Communist Party illegal in Russia, which is going to fatally undermine Gorbachev.
Bit of a power move.
Yeah.
Вот Борис Николаевич мне сейчас, когда уже мы встретились, он дал краткое изложение заседания Кабинета министров, но я его еще не читал.
А вот зачитайте. Михаил Сергеевич, зачитайте этот документ. Это стенографическая запись заседания Кабинета министров Союза 19 числа. 18 часов – это в час, когда должен был начаться штурм Дома Советов.
Я сейчас это сделаю.
Do you guys find it mental that they're just in the same room talking to each other?
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
До конца.
Ведь вины с него снимать за этот переворот нельзя. Кадры кто подбирал? Он. Утверждал кто? Он. А предали самые близкие ему люди.
was.
Can anyone explain the dynamics of this coup? Sorry, who was trying to coup who here?
Well, in elite theory terms, you had the old communist hardliners, the sort of reactionary elite, who wanted to obviously keep the ship together and keep the centralized control. You then had a kind of reformist elite, which was Gorbachev. They were trying to basically modify the system to save what they could. And Yeltsin was the new counter elite, the sort of ostensibly radical Democrats who are trying to consign the Soviet structure to history.
Why did Gorbachev let him in the first place, though? Makes no sense. Why did he allow Yeltsin to be part of the Why didn't he just ban Yeltsin? No. Stick him in the gulag.
I think one
That's what
thing
Stalin
was
would
that
have done.
Poor judge.
I think Yeltsin quite astutely built up a power base in the Russian, the Moscow and then the Russian Communist Party.
Yeah.
Not directly overseen by Gorbachev or his people, I guess, and maybe did a lot without being noticed at first. Built up a lot of credibility and clients and stuff in the party. That was one thing.
Some of those kind of Soviet apologists like Grover Fair and that other guy Ludens. Remember I read all that stuff. They're all convinced that Gorbachev kind of wanted this to happen. That he was secretly doing if you look at his actions, they are not the actions of a man who was trying to save communism. They're actions of a man who was actively undermining the entire system, which I guess is the hardliners' perspective, right, Simon?
Do you remember how people used to wonder on the right if Trump was going to be an American Gorbachev? I suppose, according to that reading, he still is. Then, if he's just trashing the system deliberately.
But interesting thing comparison there. Yeah, Gorbachev brought Yeltsin into Moscow in '85, basically as the anti-corruption candidate, and to kind of help him, jumpstart the glasnost and perestroika idea. So he got a lot of power and became effectively like the head of a sort of Moscow city committee, like a mayor, and he was enormously popular. He'd come from a sort of a background of engineering, and so he had the common touch, in a way you could say. And he also had a bit of a sort of troublemaker kind of charisma as well. And because he was always asking for more and deeper reforms, they actually chucked him out of the Politburo in '87. So he was there building up, as I say, in a kind of populist way, an anti-establishment, radical reform stance.
And he's able to do that while obviously Gorbachev is beset with all kinds of other problems and concerns over those few remaining years, right?
He's trying to liberalize to save the system, and it's just not going to work. It's absolutely making things worse.
Товарищи, для разрядки разрешите подписать указ о приостановлении деятельности Российской Компартии.
A decree, no less.
Yeah.
How can he do that?
Because he's the president of Russia as an independent state now.
So they had. So communism has already ended at this point.
Well, not quite. Not officially. Well, yeah. I mean, he's been elected. He's been elected as president of Russia, Yeltsin. Gorbachev is still technically the president of the Soviet Union, but as the Soviet Union is effectively breaking up, Russia in its independence now can assert itself and create its own legal boundaries, which means he's immediately excluding that of the communists.
Yeltsin was the president of the Russian Soviet,
the Russian Republic, so to speak.
Yeah,
right.
Within the Soviet Union,
the largest element, if you like.
And then he banned the Communist Party from Russia within the Soviet Union. Mental.
Yeah.
Absolutely mental.
Good move, though, isn't it?
I like it.
I mean, it is if everybody was like, yeah, okay, then. It was as easy as that. I mean, he must have had control of the army in order to be able to do this.
No, I think all the pro-Gorbachev elements have been arrested after the coup. They'd all showed their hand. Or at least the pro-communist elements.
Yeah.
And this is happening just after the army have sort of showed how confused and,
they've
how confusingly led they are.
Yeah, they've all been arrested. Several of them have committed suicide. It's over. It's over.
Can you imagine living through a moment? Oh, by the way, the Democrat Party's banned from this moment on. Can you imagine? Oh, by the way, we are formally banning the Labour Party forever.
Yes. Yes.
Can you imagine the moment?
Yeah.
They're singing the people's flag at the time, and then there's just a scratch ending, and the troops walk in. The Labour Party, I mean.
Play nicely. What a great irony, the communist appealing for democratic support.
He took it pretty well, considering what had just happened. I mean, fucking hell.
Yesterday's man.
Oh, I'd love it if we could live through something like that. If only Starmer had been who they said he was.
Yeah, I know.
By the way, I am hereby banning the Tories, Reform, fucking Greens.
These are all illegal.
Yeah. I mean, it seems you need to have it was basically the whole of the nomenclature. There was split into 3 factions, and maybe that's the kind of ideal number in order to, get 2 of them fighting each other, and then you come in and knock them on the head.
Tell you what, if you were a communist hardliner, then you'd be like, "Fuck! What do we do now?" Then we are fucked.
This seems like a stupid question. We definitely haven't watched this before, have we?
No.
Not this particular footage.
I must have seen this episode at different times. Just getting
plenty of stuff Curtis has used about Russia and various other things he's done, but yeah.
Have you ever watched that series called The Cold War, the one narrated by Kenneth Branagh?
Don't think I have. It sounds good though.
It's good. It should be on YouTube, free to watch. In that, there's a very similar scene, but in like Berlin or Leipzig or something, as their communist regime was. There's a very similar scene to this.
I think what happened is I watched this documentary when it came out, and I'm getting like deja vu. Anyway.
Oh, another thing just to say about this era as well is there's a lot of elite defection going on, and Yeltsin didn't have to really do anything to destroy the old system, but what he did do, and this is maybe salient to our current situation, is he did invite a lot of the younger nomenclatura to come over to his side and become part of this kind of new political intelligence, economic oligarchy system that's happening in the post-Soviet time. So he scouted the new talent and brought them on board early.
You suggesting that Rupert Lowe is a British Boris
Oh
Yeltsin?
No. I always suggest nothing. I just
Пусть идут уже, они шли. Они уже шли. Возвращайтесь.
Куда вы едете, а?
Что куда едете?
Куда вы едете?
Кто такое?
Серьезно.
А вы кто такой?
Я никто.
Ну я никто, я организовал все это дело.
Организовал.
А что вы говорите? Вы-то кто? У меня есть мандат, а у вас?
Идите, пожалуйста. Вы же там что цель организовать, я организовал цель.
All done rather amicably, Simon.
Rather good, isn't it? Yeah.
There's no argy-bargy or anything.
The men in the brown suits just troop down the road, pack their bags, and they're off. And if anyone can identify that last guy, I'm interested to know who he was. He had a bit of aura, actually, the guy with the hair and the moustache. But I don't know.
Yeah, I liked him. Yeah,
couldn't work him out.
Well, that should be a meme where he says, "Who are you? I have a mandate. Do you?"
Yeah.
That was a pretty cool image. Like,
and he also tries to say, "I am the people," or "We are the people."
He looked a little bit like Steve Bannon when he was younger. Did Bannon have a moustache at some point?
A bit like Martin Shaw.
Were people looking in their bags to see if they were taking out documents to destroy or something like that?
Yeah, what they ended up, Yeltsin ended up sort of sealing and taping off the archive so nobody could shred any paperwork.
In Germany, in East Germany, the opposite happened to some extent. Like the footage that I mentioned a minute ago, there's famous footage of people just going into the Stasi building, and I don't know if they're picking out their own files or they're just symbolically picking out files, so they're just shredding them and chucking them all over the place to sort of destroy the Stasi's ability to. The Stasi must be about to be dismantled at that point anyway, but to symbolically destroy their ability to spy on everyone.
The interesting thing about what happened with Gorbachev is, maybe for reference, if you can get the current regime to do what Gorbachev did, which was really just undermining the power of the people running the country, undermining the nomenclature. He was kind of bargaining away all the structural privileges they had in the system.
Do you think this could happen in the UK feasibly? That somebody could undermine the structure enough that then an outsider force, or not an outsider, but some force could come and basically tell the civil service and all the entrenched interests to clear out in this manner? Could that happen under the present circumstances?
No, because the people who are in government aren't actually in charge. That's one problem. Gorbachev actually was in charge, so he had executive power. Whereas, I just don't see it happening. The only way I can see it happening is if you get some total nut job libertarian in there, like a Javier Milei or something like that,
right?
Where they go full on like ANCAP, torch it down type thing. But I don't think it would happen without a fight here. I think it would be a big fight.
Well, it's essentially is that the way that all these entrenched Communist Party bureaucratic organs, who were barely a few years before this still basically completely strong, and basically the sort of Soviet deep state running the country. I'm saying, what if you had a Gorbachev type figure, or just someone who, for whatever reason, was forced or felt the need to whittle down the organizational capabilities of, say, the British civil service or the various other entrenched client groups and things that hold the British state up. And maybe it wouldn't have. I'm not saying it has to be a PM, because I agree with AA that the PM isn't very powerful, but some powerful figure who might do that, which would then basically cause all these organs to give way in this manner. I'm saying, do you think a similar thing could happen given the circumstances? Is my question.
Yeah, I think this way of it disintegrating is quite specific to the communist regime.
You sort of don't have the integration of the military and the nomenclature elites in the same way. Our military feels pretty neutered.
And this is kind of an involuntary disintegration.
If a prime minister gave the order to, I don't know, like use tanks on the people or whatever, would the army disobey because their loyalties to the king?
Wouldn't it depend on the situation, though? Because if it was a bunch of fascists are out, or a bunch of hardcore anti-Zionists are out, then they would, wouldn't they? They wouldn't hesitate because they know they get the backing of the board, so to speak. But probably not in general. No, I mean, because the British state isn't cut out for that sort of action anyway. If the British state's contemplating sending in the army, then something's gone very, very wrong.
But I mean,
So,
let's say theoretically, let's say Andy Burnham's like, right, we've had enough of this. We're gonna order the tanks
Martial law
on
or something.
Nigel Farage, say, right, on Nigel Farage's supporters. We're just gonna fuck it. We're just gonna use the army. Would the army just say, look, we can't do that? That's just not. That is an unethical order, and our loyalty is to the king, not to you. So that's
I
just
think
not going to happen.
they wouldn't open fire. They might because the army actually are often called in for security reasons. They actually do deploy quite a lot internally. It's just that they'd never be expected to fire on crowds or anything.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the circumstance here is not on any random crowd, a crowd specifically of reform supporters, i.e., the political opponents of the current prime minister.
Unless
that surely breaches some sort of military code, does it not?
Well, they wouldn't. They wouldn't do it because it's not an armed threat to the state. Because again, what happened in the footage we saw with the tanks, that wasn't in order to go and start killing the crowd. It was just that the tanks got mobbed and it got out of hand and somebody was run over by accident. Basically, I mean that wasn't what they were ordered to do per se.
They try and find ways of suppressing it without using lethal force, very probably, and to an extent they can get away with that already, just with the police. Acting as aid to the civil power. The police kettling people is often just enough to break down resistance.
Pretty stupid of Gorbachev, though, to cede control of such important functions to the president of Russia. Surely you'd think that the USSR would maintain that power for itself. Why would he possibly? Because I mean, as soon as you give military power to somebody, they're going to take over. It's just so stupid that Gorbachev did that. I don't understand.
Yeah, well, he's in a trap of wanting to promote democracy, but that necessitates an election, and the democracy says, we want Yeltsin. So,
right. But how did the president of Russia get military power is the question. If the USSR was still a thing, surely you'd think the USSR would maintain military power as well. But
yeah, the most I can theorize from what I've read is essentially there was just elite disunity, and the military were not on his side. I mean, in terms of the lower levels, there were the senior guys who were alienated from the sort of middle management of the military. The things I read suggested that they were the senior ranks were thought of as arrogant and out of touch. They weren't interested when the troops were in Afghanistan in supporting them, and they very much had a kind of in-house coup, a palace coup, I suppose you could say, which was limited very much to them, and they didn't get the bulk of the forces on side.
But it is just basic politics to be like, do not, like, for example, imagine a British Prime Minister was like, yeah, we're going to cede some military control to Holyrood. We're going to let the SDB have, some in there. That, I mean, you're just asking for trouble. That's just obviously going to break down pretty much immediately because they're going to be like, well, we're going to use this power. You know what I mean? Unless I'm misunderstanding something here, but
I think wasn't it more of a case that it wasn't so much Gorbachev deciding to hand out bits of power, it was that the Soviet state was so dysfunctional and so unable to produce even the most minor results, like making sure people have food, that it kind of he was just the excuse by which it devolved, in that he was the face of the transition rather than the cause of it. Is that not correct? Because that's what we were shown at the start of this program, was Russia just wasn't functioning. They couldn't win wars. The military was, discontented. There was corruption everywhere. the state police didn't work. There wasn't food. That's the picture we painted.
He's the fall guy, for this.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, people took issue with it and wanted to sort of, nuance it. But the essential idea was the Andropov program to extract the political and intelligence elite from the difficulties of the impending collapse of communism and take the wealth over by means of having oligarchs to run it, but on condition that they knew who was the boss. And Gorbachev essentially was out in the cold trying to liberalize and reform, and in so doing, aggravating the shortages, aggravating the inflation, the corruption, and the stealing was running rampant. And as you say, it was the case of pulling the levers at the center and nothing happening on the peripheries, which is kind of what you're seeing here, that everything's kind of happening in Moscow. Meanwhile, out in, Siberia, people are just tending their cows and there's nothing going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's too big to control anymore.
Not a functional state, no.
Щетки мы делаем самых разных моделей, высокого качества, которые удовлетворят любого потребителя.
Это самая лучшая щетка в мире. Покупайте щетку Советского Союза.
Can you imagine Stalin saying that? Why are they all different colours? Make them all black. Be one standard issue toothbrush. This way it's all gone wrong.
Toothbrush decadence.
That's almost part of it while it was breaking down. It was sort of it was becoming too specialized. I mean, the language you use there, toothbrushes for the discerning customer. They're sort of trying to ape the language of choice of the consumerist West. But there's too much choice and it's not working. And
you also have to remember the sort of theological problem of all this is that what's it for? Like what is all this social? Because in the old days of Stalin and Lenin, it was this mystical idea that one day we'll get true socialism, where everything will just work. Everything will be worked out. We'll scientifically rationalize everything to the point where there's no worries. Everything is just dandy. By this point, no one really believes that anymore. And since all anyone cares about is better material goods, then why wouldn't you just be a capitalist? Because clearly, if you're seeing all this stuff from the West, that okay, well, the West has higher living standards. There's more food. There's a bigger choice of goods, or so it seems. Then what's the point in doing all this communistic stuff? It's clearly not working.
I just got a horrible image of Lenin and Stalin singing that song from Lion King, Hakuna Matata, like the original dream of the communist. No worries.
That is kind of the dream, though. That is the dream. It's that you can rationalize everything to a point where you can change human nature and human society. That true socialism will be put into practice.
People in the chat earlier were saying that the real feud between Gorbachev and Yeltsin was really over whether Pizza Hut was better than Domino's. Just remember last week. Gorbachev in that advert last week was quite amusing, wasn't it?
Talk about aura, Kelly. We talked about aura, loss of aura, Pizza Hut, Pizza Hut. This
is a news program Vremya, which means time, with Anna Shatilova and Igor Kudrin.
That theme is very good. I had that on MP3 for a few years. It's very good music. I can't remember who the composer is.
Здравствуйте, товарищи.
So they start off by saying, hello, comrades, and then they realize the microphone's not working.
Не работает.
And she rings up the control room and says, it isn't working. Microphone isn't working. It won't turn on. The indicator lights aren't lit. Please fix it.
Just imagine the day, Simon. BBC News at 6.
Oh, shameful.
Lights aren't working. Mic's not on. Broadcast has been switched off by order of Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
Is this a like a private TV channel or state?
No, this was Central Television. This was the main Soviet channel. She's a very famous newsreader, Anna Shatilova.
Не горят сигнальные лампы. Попрошу отрегулировать.
It says, please adjust it. Adjust her collar.
Президент СССР Михаил Сергеевич Горбачев.
Do you think if it all happened here, and let's say with that Nigel Farage is secretly, hiding his power levels, comes to power, pulls a Yeltsin, bans the Labour Party, bans the BBC, turns us into a kind of like quasi-fascist Zionist state. Do you think the four of us, or at least the three of us, not Horus, would have some sort of like weird, like people got like weird nostalgia, right? Weird nostalgia for the communist days and things like that. Do you think we'd be like, oh, I remember it. I remember Des Lynam on the BBC back in the old days when things worked and things were better. Tony Blair years, Do you think we develop that kind of nostalgia for the old system? Or do you think we'd be happy?
The old post-war consensus.
Or do you think we'd be happy in Nigel Farage's New Britain? Genuine question.
I don't know.
What would Adam Curtis think as well?
I think Curtis would definitely be nostalgic for the old regime, personally.
Yeah. I think we'd be like, do you remember during the Cold War there'd be all these like South American like anti-dictatorship intellectuals that would kind of go around the world, and you'd have like Pablo Neruda and Gabriel Garcia Marquez or whatever. They'd all just pop up in these random places. I think we'd end up like that. Like we'd all be doing this show, but in Australia or something, where they sort of ask us questions about our fears for the homeland and when can we return and this.
I think Curtis would probably reiterate the same point he's made about Trump in lots of the recent interviews over the last few years, where he said things like, have you noticed there was all this anticipation and online ferment about Trump, and then he came in and nothing really happened. And he made that point ad nauseum in a number of interviews and said, look, things haven't really changed. People have become consumed by the spectacle, and nothing is really going to change. So I think he'd say the same thing.
Do you know, if I actually spoke at that Adam Curtis conference, the paper I was going to write, the presentation I was going to give, was that politics has become the last refuge of hyper-reality.
Yeah.
That, the hyper-normalization, in many ways, the system has kind of lost its ability to dazzle because people have just tuned out, stopped watching TV, stopped paying attention. Lots of people just have tuned out. Nobody watches the Oscars anymore. Politics is the last bastion, is the last place where everybody kind of watches it, But I feel like even that now, Simon, has... What I was going to say was that during the course of the Iran war, I found myself, and given that I've got some interest, I actually know people in Iran, but I found myself just kind of quietly turning down the volume. I'm just not going to listen. I'm just not going to listen. I'm done with this. Yeah. And I just I turned it off. I turned off Trump, like I turned off BBC and all the other things I watch, because I'm just, after 10 years, I just can't do it anymore. I'm not interested. And I wonder how many other people have done that. Don't forget now, I'm in the 0.1% of people who really care about politics. So if I've tuned it out, Lord, what's the normal person done? It's a genuine question,
I think people are kind of punch drunk with it now. They're anesthetized, and they are. I think this is one of the reasons of people noticing people falling away on Twitter. I think people are following your example and are leaving and are stepping out of all of this. I know I'm saying I'm staying on Twitter because it's useful for communications, but really I have been having dark thoughts the last few weeks.
Both you and Hat will also leave Twitter before
I just need it.
You'll realise
that. It points out.
Yeah.
No, I did.
You
I
will
did
realise,
leave Twitter.
Right?
I'm not even going to put up my hands and make a feeble excuse about communications anymore. I just feel my soul is so deadened.
As someone now running a hit YouTube channel, you will realise that you get basically negative conversion from Twitter. Like, nobody comes from Twitter to what you'll get. People follow you from YouTube to Twitter, but you never get people follow from Twitter to YouTube.
The only reason I have a Twitter account is to talk to John D, because there's no other platform on which I can speak to. That's it. If we connected on some other platform, I would just delete Twitter tomorrow. That's it.
Come to the light, Hat. Come to the light, brother Simon.
I deleted. I deleted
brother
Twitter
Horus,
a
come
couple
to
of
the
years
light.
ago.
Well, but this is, the kind of furore of the last few days over the discussions about reform and restore. I mean, I've taken to, I've got my own views on this, and I understand how people are exercised about this, and I'm sympathetic to nearly everybody who's talking about it. But my sense of my response going forward about this is I'm more interested in the aesthetic response, I suppose, and I'm sort of segueing into this bit of footage here, because this image on screen of this giant tricolor flag that they brought to this pro-Yeltsin protest, this is a story about a kind of fleeting moment made out of a cultural collision just of that form. The flag itself, there's an interesting story behind it. There's a couple of these nonconformist artists that I talked about in previous episodes, a guy called Andrei Filippov, and he made this flag as a birthday present for another artist called Konstantin Zvezdochitov. And really what he was doing is he basically, I said a lot of these avant-garde art movements actually revolved around people doing little performances and exhibitions and installations in flats in Moscow apartments. And he'd made this huge flag to give to his friend for his birthday. And he was going to bring it to the apartment because they were doing a sort of a humorous performance in the apartment about Napoleon's invasion of Russia and how it failed. And he was going to use it as a prop. And he went to the protests, and he wrapped himself up in it because it was actually a little bit cold one night, and the crowd sort of latched onto this sort of joke birthday gift that he made and decided to use it. And so, I mean, these guys were both in what was called the Moscow Conceptualism, a sort of underground art movement where they would use Soviet imagery to mock the totalitarian regime. I'm going straight to your Guy Debord video. This is what they call détournement. This is taking these emblems and if you like, reinvigorating them. I mean, the flags he would have stitched into the flags. You can't see it here, but he would have the Russian double-headed eagle stitched into bits of lettering on the flag. It's not visible from here, but it's just an interesting moment of an art and culture intervention having a striking effect. It's not to say that this changes anything, but it's a sort of moment of galvanizing sentiment. And if you imagine that being done hundreds of times over, what might happen if there's a kind of level of cultural attack that you start to use, instead of thinking about politics only in terms of what you're doing with on the ground movements and electoral canvassing and trying to invigorate people into voting a certain way. What you can also do with a kind of situationism like this. That's all I'm saying on that. But I think that's, it's interesting, the stuff you've been doing recently on Baudrillard, Debord and Frederick Jameson. I think people should go away and look at all of those ways of thinking about what is happening. These aren't just, I know they're French postmodernists, it all seems very abstract and airy-fairy, but I think the ideas about getting people to think about the space they're in are still very useful politically. It's a different way of approaching it. It's, something I'm more interested in than trying to think about electoral politics at this stage. Where are the people, if you like? I mean, I know it's cringe, but the lions led by donkeys guys, in a way, kind of do create little news headlines and situations and things to respond to. And even if they're weaponized and used by the regime or against the regime, it doesn't kind of matter. They're little punctuations in people's thinking. So I think there's interest to be had there, and delving deeper into those thinkers, I think, is very well worth doing as a way of formulating responses, maybe going underground, away from the heat and fury of political discourse online, and channeling energy as one mode of response. Not necessarily all of them. You can have political responses as well, but it's another mode. And it was interesting here that nonconformist art did start to play a part in the response of people to the changes of power that were still circulations of elites in the end.
And I think it's probably a good place to. You will remember this image for next week, Simon. I just realised that it's 10 to 5, so I've got to get out of here in 10 minutes, unfortunately. There are some super chats. Also, I've remembered something that I need to mention, which is that speaking of puncturing people's lives, if you're in the Colorado area, there is a radio station that now exists in Colorado, the Khan, it's called. And on this 107.1 FM in Colorado, a new radio station, if you have a look here, you can see that they're playing electro swing, getting funky, things like that. And if you have a look at 6 p.m. there, The Academic Agency with Dr. Nima Parvini, every day. Now, am I going to be presenting a radio show? No. What they're doing, and I've agreed to this, is they're taking old videos of mine, and for an hour every day, the listeners of this radio station will get one of my videos. And also they're playing the Jay Burden show as well at 9 p.m. And also the Distributist, who's got like the graveyard slot there. I'm clearly the James O'Brien, and Distributist is like Ian Collins or something. But yeah, that's kind of cool, isn't it? They've created a radio station over there.
Fantastic.
Isn't that cool?
It's what you want.
So yeah, if you're in Colorado, you can listen to that on actual normal radio. I'm just imagining the average kind of boomer in Colorado driving around. Oh, I wonder what's on the radio. Who's this English? Who the hell is this English guy talking about fucking postmodernism? What's this? I want to listen to some music. And there's me like, going on about Baudrillard or something.
Can't they give you a synth pop hour or something as well?
So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, I agreed to it. Yes. Also, there's a good number of super chats. Humphrey says, AA, are you aware of the UK government trying to ban cigar boxes and packaging? There is currently a consultation. Google save cigars plain packaging. Oh, they probably want to put some like picture of a lung exploding or like an eye popping out of the socket or something, do they? Oh, they're horrible, those things, aren't they? I mean, why are they coming after cigars? I don't know. What can we do about this? What can we stop them coming after our cigars?
We'd have to, you know, the man to speak to actually on this would be Alexander Adams, because he's actually got experience of like defanging the little NGOs that push for this kind of thing. Because it won't just be the government; it'll be some anti-tobacco lobby group that'll be pushing some minister for this, and they'll have introduced it. So
I mean,
if we can
cigars are so niche
intercept
already, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, also it's like, oh yeah, that we need to save billions in the NHS by stopping all these cigar deaths that are being caused by the beautiful packaging.
There are none.
You know?
I don't think there are any cigars.
Well, exactly. Right. This is it. It's put such a point. It's purely just for spite generally.
I don't read Jewel's posts, by the way, unless they are over 1,000 Jewel, 1,000 or more Jewels, and I'll acknowledge it. But I'm Chris Primer says rename the stream "Bumming Post USSR." Would I get away with that on YouTube? I'm not sure if I can call a stream "Bumming" on YouTube. You know.
No.
Cameron Belt has sent 1,000 Jewels, a loot box. The Selkin says, over a year since the tariff talk with Dan. New talk. I don't think Dan would want to reopen that little Pandora's box, would he? I mean, you know, UTIS 4321 says, it is interesting that twice in less than 100 years, Russian liberals led to the collapse of the state and the mass death of Russians. Yeah, that's true. AJ says Miliband has extra negative aura, except maybe forget the hell out of our politics and out of our country. I've got that on speed dial here. Where is it?
Get the hell out of our politics and our country.
Tough enough.
AA, what's your win ratio as a Stalinist in Crisis in the Kremlin? I don't think I've ever won Crisis in the Kremlin. I've got to the 90s. I've managed to make it from 85 into like the 90s, but I usually get cooed or overthrown at some point. I don't think I've ever won. I've gone quite far though. Wallon Gonskin says Elvis did not have aura. He was just a dancing potato, NEG for cash. A product for the lowest common denominator. You're wrong. Elvis had massive aura. I also noticed that you were also the person who said that I don't have aura. And what I would suggest is that, you know how people have like a gaydar where they can, say, I would say that man there has an off aura dar. He doesn't get what aura is and therefore cannot spot it. Because if you're saying that both Elvis and me don't have aura, I'd suggest the problem is with you. So that would be. I'm not saying that I've got the same amount of aura as Elvis. I'm just saying that I spot patterns, and something's off with that. Something's off with that.
Did Hulk Hogan have aura?
Yeah, massive aura. Yeah, massive aura.
Did Midian?
No.
Did Midian or Viscera?
No. The Rock, Stone Cold, and Hulk Hogan all had massive aura. Midian did not. Virgil did not, and it's one of those things that's very hard to put your finger on. It's like an X factor. It's like, but when you know it, when you see it, you know it, right? And
what about Albert from Test and Albert?
No aura. Albert had no aura. Yeah, but I mean, lots of wrestlers don't have aura, but some do, and some, I would say, through trickery, enhance their aura even though they don't have great natural aura. Triple H, I would say, did not have great natural aura, but acquired it through positioning,
banging the daughter of the guy who owned the company,
and pyrotechnics and spitting water on his hair. Like, he acquired it just being booked as the champion for about 10 years. He acquired it over time, right? But that was like kind of engineered, whereas Hogan just had it.
What about Tully Blanchard?
Yeah. Tully Blanchard had great aura. Yeah, great aura as a heel. Great heel charisma. Yeah, great aura. All of the Four Horsemen had great aura. Flair and yeah. I mean, this is why wrestling is the conduit for real life, because all of the things that we talk about, you can see in wrestling. But yeah. Who else? Alfred, the greatest ever, has given me a GOAT trophy. So there we go. Kurt Russell did have aura, yeah, I would agree. Which is interesting because in one of my favorite films of his, Big Trouble in Little China, he's kind of depicted as a kind of klutzy character, isn't he? He's kind of like always banging his head on the wall and kind of dropping a can and things like that. But still, Kurt Russell had such massive aura that even despite the depiction, he has it in spades even in that movie. So, yeah. In fact, the last director's commentary I ever listened to was Kurt Russell on Big Trouble. I bought Big Trouble in Little China special edition and watched the director's commentary, and Kurt Russell was, one, surprisingly based on that commentary, and two, kind of suggested that he may have been abused as a kid, like here and there. He was like, oh yeah, when I was 9, I didn't really have a childhood. I was, my dad made, like, he was like a TV star or something. So he spent his whole life like in the system, and there's kind of some weird undertones on that director's commentary. So if you're into listening to director's commentaries, I would recommend seeking out the Kurt Russell one on that movie. And I think he's with, is it John Carpenter? No, John Landis is the director of that film, I think. I think it's John Landis and Kurt Russell. But anyway, yeah.
Oh yeah, what about Stargate? Do you like Stargate? That's a Kurt Russell film.
Is that the one where it's like aliens in the pyramid.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb. It's pretty stupid. But
I remember enjoying it back in the day.
yeah, I loved it when I was like 12, 13. Yeah, brilliant. It's a Roland Emmerich film, and he doesn't really do good films, but it's good fun.
I think I saw that in the cinema, Stargate.
Yeah, I had a great time watching that in the cinema when I was 12 or 13.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right. Well, another little loot box last minute by Alex Coughlin. He's come in with another 1,000 jewels. I don't even know what those jewels are, but much to my chagrin. And I saw Nathan Hood has bought 20 gifts for people as well. That's nice of him. But I will say goodbye. Simon, anything you'd like to plug, sir? Any upcoming streams? Any shows that you'd like to promote? Hat?
Yes, do tune in tomorrow, where Simon and I will be speaking to
Paul
Simon.
Heron. Paul Heron, who's a Welsh writer who has a Substack called Some Private Diagonal. Oh, it's not a Substack, it's a website, someprivatediagonal.com. He's very interesting. And we're going to be talking about 40s British films, an era which is a bit under-examined. And we're doing these streams on usually Tuesdays, Thursdays, and a Sunday studio session as well. Please do come and join us if you want culture.
Horace, anything you want to promote, sir? Horace is gone already. Horace?
Sorry, stuck on mute. No, nothing for me. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll subscribe to his Substack if you're on a Substack. Check out that Colorado radio thing. Buy a course, ladies and gentlemen, at the Academic Agency. And make sure you check out my video tomorrow morning, which is on, I think it's, what do we do? Samuel T. Francis today. Tomorrow we're looking at, Ted Kaczynski. Uncle Ted tomorrow. So that's one to look forward to. Although I will say, looking at Uncle Ted and Jack Ellul side by side, Kaczynski is basically York Notes on Ellul. I don't think there's anything in Kaczynski that's not in Ellul, apart from his critique of leftists, the psychological breakdown of left. That's the only original thing in there, really. So there's a lot of retread on Uncle Ted. But anyway, there we go. Bye, guys.
What goes on in this town is none of your business.
As long as I'm living here, it is.
Then maybe you shouldn't be living here!
Well, that's easily fixed.